GMIS portal, all this necessary information will be a one-stop help portal for our MSMEs. So we are trying to do that, and we hope it'll help our MSMEs. So this is one very big exercise that we are taking. And in also to help our MSMEs become exports, we are also giving them capacity building for the first time exporters. So we are also giving them a certain amount of this insurance coverage as well, and we are also helping them with documentation. So online. And there are so many other skill development programs that we conduct. We also have a PMS portal, a PMS scheme, which helps and support our MSMEs to exhibit and showcase their product in various fairs and exhibitions within India. And if you want to go out and participate in some of the major fairs, then we have international cooperation scheme where more than 600 plus events are already approved, and industry associations, they come forward and then they go take our MSMEs along with them, and then they understand the ecosystem of the global market, and also how best they can also upgrade their products so that they can meet the demands of the global market. So international cooperation is there for the international market, and the PMS schemes is there for the various exhibitions and fairs within India. And so you can have a look at that, and should you want to participate in any of these, then please come forward and then meet us as well. And as I said, that Udyam registration, we are hoping to touch 1 crore very soon. And as now we are celebrating the Enterprise India under the ACAM, we are going to have one very big fair in the month of, hopefully in the month of June. So with the many interventions that we are doing, we hope that your defense MSMEs also will be a part of that. And for the other schemes that Ministry of MSME does to help growth of MSMEs in you can visit our website. There are many schemes which we give loans, and where our MSMEs can be given hand-holding support for technology intervention, skill training, or even designing their products and the value chain. There are so many interventions already available in our ministry. So kindly visit us, and I hope that as you discuss today the various ways and gaps, I hope that whatever decision you take, you will also share your report with us, so that whatever little we can do, we would also be happy to help. So thank you very much, PhD Chamber, for organizing this wonderful time of interaction with the defense. And also I welcome all the MSMEs, especially in defense sector, to be in touch with us and to also share your thoughts, share your views with us so that we can help you. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for elucidating the numerous schemes of MSME ministry which are out there to help the MSMEs. And let me at this point of time take an opportunity to thank you, as in also the Ministry of MSME, for supporting us for the international conference which we had less than a month back on defense and homeland security, which was attended by a large number of MSMEs and international delegates, followed by B2B sessions. And we assure you and the Ministry of MSME, as was also discussed, that we should go force by force, of the Indian Defense Forces, and focus on solving problems and developing MSMEs for each of the forces. We have started to do that with the Indian Air Force as we see it today. And I must also thank you for all the support which you've been giving on through the Ministry of MSME, through the Design Clinic scheme, I think, which will also help a lot of MSMEs here, and also the numerous tool rooms which you are coming up with, which can get well integrated. So I think what we are trying to do here in this session is bring in the best of both the worlds, what can come from the Indian Air Force in terms of the requirements and a lot of other hand-holding, as well as what schemes of the Ministry of Defense and Ministry of MSME can actually bring forth on the table for people to venture into defense production. So it's time for me to now request Air Vice Marshal P.S. Sareen, VSM, Assistant Chief of Air Staff, Maintenance Plans, Indian Air Force, to kindly not really give the concluding remarks, but more of the encouraging remarks which we've been seeing since the morning. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Air Marshal Vikas Pandey, dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, members of the industry, media, and our friends from PhD CCI. The AOM has already expressed the thanks from the Indian Air Force perspective to PhD CCI for giving us this opportunity here to showcase our requirements to the industry. What I would like to bring out here is that we are targeting not only the established defense players, but also the potential, relatively unexplored potential of the MSME. And towards this, we are very thankful to the Ministry of MSME also to have participated in this exercise and brought forth their members here today. We have a B2B session post the technical sessions which are planned, where we will showcase our requirements to the industry. We hope the one-to-one interactions will be very, very meaningful. And as just to amplify, we are very, very open towards the broad definition of self-reliance. Air Marshal Pandey has already covered the various nuances of how we believe in the Indian Air Force that it is the biggest stepping stone would be getting into repair, getting an insight into what it entails. We from the Indian Air Force would like to share with you that today we have our supporting colleagues from both the DGAQA as well as the RCMA here, who will also be participating in subsequent technical sessions, who will be informing you on how we intend in a collaborative manner to ensure that we handhold the industry, walk you through the initial steps in this endeavor, which has been laid out by our Prime Minister of Atmanirbharta and Self-Reliance. Jai Hind. Thank you.
So with this call being extended through AVM Sareen, that MSMEs who are not involved in defense manufacturing are also invited. So that's the loud and clear message which is going out, and the encouragement and the passion behind the entire exercise. Time for me to invite Group Captain Sirdhar. He's the Group Captain for Indigenization on the dais, please, because he wants to he's one of the key persons who's been actually behind mobilizing things at Indian Air Force and all that glamour which you see outside. Please.
Thank you, sir. But I'd just like to start by saying that whatever Mr. Sehgal has said is actually not true. But what he has done today is all true. He's put in all his potential, his workforce behind to make this seminar a wonderful experience for all of us to extend the partnership. Towards that, it is on our behalf, I would request now Air Marshal Vikas Pandey, AVSM, BSM, to hand over the mementos To the members of PhD CCI, I would first start with Mr. Pradeep Multani, of course in absentia. So Mr. Saigal will receive on behalf of him, sir. Please, sir. Next, I would request Mr. Saurabh Sanyal. He has been the pillar behind this seminar. Next, I would request Mr. Vivek Saigal, the key initiator of this seminar, who came all the way to RK Puram, and he told us, we will make it a success, don't worry, sir. Here he is. Please, sir. All that ends well is what we expect, sir. One more, sir. So, one last is Dr. Nasir Jamal, without whom I think this particular session wouldn't have been possible. Please, sir. He is the secretary of PhD CCI. Thank you, sir. Now I hand over back to the esteemed moderator to again continue with this great session. Thank you, sir.
I'll request you to stay back on the dais. Yes, and I'll request our Secretary General to kindly honor Group Captain Sirdhar for his efforts. Can we have a memento for him, please? No, sir. I think in any case, he deserves it, and there's nobody big or small for the tremendous efforts which have been put in. And I'm sure the resolve of the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of MSME, and the Indian Air Force is going to take us where we want to be, from a net importer to a net exporter. So it's been a great morning, and we've been unusually punctual, if not even before time. And I'd like to request our Secretary General, the force behind PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to kindly propose a hearty vote of thanks.
Thank you, Vivek. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the PhD Chamber, leadership, and on my own, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Air Marshal Vikas Pandey, AVSM, VSM, Air Officer in Charge Maintenance, Indian Air Force, for sparing his valuable time and coming to this very important conference and interacting with the industry members. I also take this opportunity to thank Sri Chandrakar Bharti, the Joint Secretary, Aero, Department of Defense Production, Government of India, for having come virtually and address the audience here. Air Vice Marshal P.S. Sareen, Assistant Chief of Air Staff, Maintenance Plan, Indian Air Force. Ms. Mercy Epau, Joint Secretary, SME, Ministry of MSME. Air Commodore Sandeep Kumar, VSM, Commodore Indigenization, Indian Air Force. My colleague, Sri Vivek Saigal, Assistant Secretary General, PhD Chamber. Mr. Dr. Nasir Jamal, Secretary, PhD Chamber, and all esteemed dignitaries, delegates, and friends from the Indian Air Force and media. Thank you so much for being here for this important inaugural session. We would like to extend special thanks to the Indian Air Force for supporting this meaningful and timely industry interactive conference and the proposed B2B meetings, which is going to take place in the after the technical session this afternoon. Imagine the difference, the gap, which was highlighted by our speakers. 12,000 registered MSMEs in the defense production and 1 crore registered SMEs in the Aadhaar Udyam. There's a huge gap and opportunity for all the SMEs to come forward. All those all those SMEs, engineers, manufacturers who have been there for so many years, manufacturing components for the automobile industry, for the other smaller manufacturing industries coming into the defense manufacturing. As was rightly brought out by Air Marshal Vibhas Pandey ji, he has brought out the plethora of items which are available to the industry for manufacturing indigenously. There are drawings available, there are components available, there are huge lists which have been unfurled today for the benefit of the MSME industry. And the funds, there's no dearth of funds. In the other sectors of manufacturing and business, there are huge financial crunches, whereas in the defense sector, you name there's no limit of funds which are available. And once you become an expert, once you create that component, a sample, plus number of other items, you are assured of getting the order and supplying it to the industry. You can even form a consortium for one product, follow the best practices of Germany, USA, UK, and other countries which are there into defense manufacturing, and also start exporting. Imagine the MSMEs in the defense sector who are exporting to 70 countries, which was brought out by our JS, absolutely vocally. And the Honorable Prime Minister talking about it, that be vocal for global. We have to become Atmanirbhar. We have to start getting into the defense sector, throw away all our qualms and throw away all our differences that defense is a hush-hush affair and nothing can be there for us or for the industry to manufacture indigenously. So with these words, I would also like to thank our partners for the conference, namely Starwire India Limited, Micron Instruments, Godrej Aerospace and DCM Shriram Industries Limited, who have supported us today and will be supporting in the future too. We especially thank Codicia and CRT for extending their support for the success for this conference. We are extremely grateful to the Indian Air Force for having given us this support, what you see right at the show window from the entry to this auditorium, as also the display of equipment and components which have been planned in a very big way for the MSMEs to understand and to have a clear-cut approach towards the future roadmap. The manuals and handouts given by the Indian Air Force in terms of airborne spares and the information brochure is just the beginning of a great collaboration between the Indian Air Force and the SME, which will be taken up by the PhD CCI in the future. The defense sector, the fact of the matter is that the India is reaching out to 70 friendly foreign countries is the proof of our MSME sector in quality, quantity, and state-of-the-art specifications. The transfer of technology for repairs and maintenance, as was brought out by Air Marshal Vibhas Pandey ji, is a great idea. And we must insist on quality. For quality, the DPSUs have already created facilities for the MSMEs to use. A little bit of expenditure on the R&D is a thought-provoking exercise, which we must think today as a sector from the MSME, wherein we can spend some time and money to create state-of-the-art components and improve upon the existing components which are already existing with the Indian Air Force. This will go a very long way, not only creating indigenization and the components internally, but also will help us in export of these components abroad. We look forward to a series of meaningful interactions with the Indian Air Force in future for providing business opportunities to the Indian defense industry and handhold them. With these words, I conclude. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you, SG. And as the saying goes, we must save the best for the last. And at this moment, I must invite Air Commodore Sandeep Kumar, VSM, on the dais, please. And I'll request our Secretary General to kindly do the honors of felicitating him. And I think this is the first discussion which we had back at the Air Force headquarters which was lengthy and passionate, was with Air Commodore Sandeep Kumar. May I request, if it's not out of protocol, Air Marshal Vibhas Pandey, Ms. Mercy Pao, and AVM Sarinji to also kindly join in greeting Air Commodore Sandeep Kumar. So with 2-3 minutes still available to me, I must just talk about 2-3 things. Apart from the international conference which the PhD chamber had with the Ministry of MSME, we also were instrumental in putting together a report of strategic raw materials which could be import substituted. And we culled out 13 to 14,000 crores of materials, strategic raw materials, which could be import substituted. And that report was handed over to Ministry of Defense, Government of India, and the Honorable Defense Minister was kind enough to institute a full-fledged task force to implement um, the thoughts and the recommendations on the report on import substitution of strategic raw materials. So, and we continue to work with the ministry on that effort. So that's one thing on on that side. And I must also mention that with the help of Ministry of Defense and all the forces during the COVID period, we've had numerous interactions through the webinar mode with the MSMEs for different forces, including the DGQA, the Air Force, the Army, the Indian Navy, and various officers of Ministry of Defense. So the loud message, once again, I think we are all united to make this happen, and we will definitely do it. With these words, I'd like to invite all of you for a cup of tea, and we'd like to get back to the room by about 11:45 a.m. After having our tea. Please do find time to go to the Modi Hall and look at the exhibition there. Thank you very much.
Including one of the deputy. His presentation is there. Right. मैं मॉडरेटर को मैं करूँ बीच में मॉडरेटर सेंटर ये हो गया ठीक है ठीक है तीन पार्ट है दैट्स फाइन 5 शेयर्स है थोड़ा और दर्द कर दो यहाँ प्लीज है हमारे पास थोड़ी थोड़ी दर्द कर दो थोड़ा सा हिंट कर दो इसको थोड़ा सा ठीक है
ओके सर आज लोग अच्छा बैंक चेक चेक तो करते हैं चेक तो कभी देते नहीं हैं 2-3 लाख क्या चेक करेंगे तो माने 3-4 लाख ये करोड़ों का दो उससे तो होगा minimum guarantee verification. Especially on 92 registering. Source is मैं 150 तो कहीं पा रही हूँ कम 10 तो कहीं नहीं होगी हाँ आ जाता बहुत लोग बोल रहे टेक तो बने आएंगे एग्जैक्टली इम्पोर्टेंट सेशन तो होगा second session coming.
सुनिए मैं एक पैनलिस्ट हूँ विंग कमांडर बेंजामिन शर्मा जी है क्या आसपास में हेलो हेलो सुनिए हेलो हेलो
क्वाड्रेटिक अच्छा विवेक सर पे उन पे है
प्लास्टिक फूड डरूंगा विवेक सर हाँ good morning, gentlemen. Please, I would request everyone to be seated. Please settle down. We'll be starting the next session in another 5 minutes. Please come forward. There are seats which are vacant. Please come forward. I would request everyone to fill from front. We'll be starting the session just now. We are expecting the AOM to come and be seated. In the meantime, I would like to call all the panelists on this stage, including our moderator. First of all, I would like to invite Colonel K.V. Kuber, Director, Aerospace and Defense from Ernst & Young. Colonel K.V. Kuber, a veteran from the Army and from the industry also. Colonel Kuber. We would now like to invite Group Captain Mukesh Sharma from Director, Industries. Group Captain Mukesh Sharma. Now I would like to invite Mr. Partha P. Roy Chaudhary, the Commercial Lead India from Lockheed Martin Corporation. Partha ji, good afternoon. Now I would like to invite Shri Manek Behram Kamdeen, the Associate Vice President and Business Head of Godrej Aerospace. Mr. Manek, please have us. I would also like to invite Mr. Pramod Puranik, the Vice President of Defense of the Bharat Forge, Defense and Aerospace. Mr. Pramod Puranik. I would now like to hand over the mic to our moderator, Colonel K.V. Kuber.
Air Marshal Vikas Pandey, sir, the excellent blue uniform over here, all the serving officers from the Indian Air Force who touch the sky with glory. These are the guys who enable them to touch the sky with glory. Veterans from the industry, PhD office bearers, excellent panel over here, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to moderate a session with the AOM listening in and senior officers from the Air Force listening in. And I think no better time that we are in, that we see a transformational change in the way that we are doing things in this country. I just want to say that there are companies and there is an industry and there is a armed force. The armed forces, fortunately or otherwise, are the single buyer in this case. And we have a very good single buyer who's come forward, put a step absolutely in front and says, here I am, please come to me. It's for us, the industry, to get up and meet this challenge. And I'm going to tell you what the challenge is. The challenge is, in 2020-21, the Indian Air Force SHQ had imported 469 items worth 7706 million rupees, or close to 770 crores. And this number has come down in 1 year, in 2022, to just 84 items worth 474 crores. And that's the testimony for us to get inspired on and come forward to meet this challenge. There are about 1,300 aircrafts flying today, 900 rotary engines. We've got 900 rotary aircrafts. On the engine side, there are about 1,383 engines with the Air Force. 193 engines, aero engines, I'm talking about with the Indian Navy. And with the Indian Army, there are about 181 engines. And that's what we are looking at today when we talk about aero engines. And we all know that the MRO cost is anywhere between 3x to 4x of the procurement cost. And that's what we are all here together to brainstorm to reduce. And how do we bring in this money into the country? And therefore, as I always say, the cost to country is more important than the L1 cost. And this is one of the debates that we had when I was part of the National Experts Committee writing the DPP 2016. And the debate was with the then Defense Minister, Mr. Parikar, when he said if the Indian industry matches the foreign component or subsystem and are able to give us at a price less than that, then we'll procure from the Indian industry. So we told them, why is it necessary for them to give you at a lower price? Why cannot we buy it even if it is at a higher price? And that is the concept of cost to country. When you buy from abroad, you're strengthening the industry abroad. When you buy in India, you're strengthening the industry in India. And when you don't have the numbers and you're not able to amortize the systems, subsystems, and components in the time frame that the RFP or the requirement dictates, then the cost could be anywhere between 150% or slightly more or even less. And that's exactly what we said. Even if it is at a higher cost, we should buy from the Indian industry because there is a direct multiplier of anywhere between 2.56 to 8, which means if you put 100 rupees in the country, you're multiplying it by something like 800 rupees when it circulates. And therefore, even if you're not buying it at a lower cost, we are still gaining in terms of cost to country. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll not bore you too much with statistics and philosophy, because that's what we are actually here addressing the spirit and forming a letter which will enable this particular ecosystem to progress. There are companies like Smith Detection Systems, which have been supplying hoses to the Air Force the last about 40 years. There are companies which are supplying the cockpit voice recorders. There's a small company back there in Bangalore which is supplying various systems that are flying. We have Raghu Kulkarni sitting here. In the last 3 years, that their company has already started supplying to Bell helicopters outside. If you can supply to Bell helicopters, why can't you supply to our own helicopters in India? And that's where I think we should put in a little more effort. The Indian Air Force and IIT Delhi have an MOU for feasibility studies to develop prototype for prototype development, and there are a number of such initiatives that are going on, which enhances this whole concept that we are talking about today. So, ladies and gentlemen, all that is left for me to tell you is my favorite theme line that I've been talking about since 2011 when I was an advisor with the Ministry of MSME, that if India lives in villages, the industry lives in MSMEs. If the industry can recognize that, we have got people from Godrej, we've got people from large companies here, and I'm sure they recognize that if the foundation is strong, the building will never fail. With that, I have great pleasure in inviting the person who's at the center stage of procurement in the Air Force, who deals with all the make programs. He is the nodal officer in the PMU, the make PMU, and we all know the success stories of make programs. Let me talk about the flop side. Since 2006, when we first introduced the make procedure, there were about 4 or 5 major programs which went in the make. We just had one category called make. And since 2006 till today, I don't know how many years that is, but none of them has progressed. But in the last about a couple of months, we have seen about 14 programs that have been launched into the Make 1 category, which is equivalent to the Make category that was envisaged earlier. And I only hope the MOD is able to stand to its commitment of pushing these 14 programs through. And here is where I want to make a difference between Make 1, Make 2, Make 3, IDEX, and so many other programs that have been launched. Make 1 program is similar to the Make that we had in DPP 2006. When the risk of development is very high to the industry, the government needs to step in. And that is where the government funds the Make programs. And in Make 1 today, we are funding 70%. This figure has reduced from 80%, which was in the previous versions of the DPP, and the DAP thought maybe we should fund less. I think we should recognize the risk of development, and it is not a standard 70% or 80% or 90%. I think it is proportional to the risk of development, and therefore I want to believe that the MOD should not shy away from funding more if they need to do so, depending upon, contingent upon the program that is being envisaged. Make 2 and Make 3, my friend is going to talk to you in a while. I have one small reservation in Make 2, and I want to make that public today since we have senior officers listening to this. When Make 2 was envisaged in DPP 2016, the committee which I was part of, then the Honorable Defense Minister, Mr. Manohar Parrikar, came out with this idea that Make 2, when we have about, let's say, 10 industries are participating in a Make 2 program, and 5 of them qualify, and they clear all the testing and certification, and they clear all the trials, but we are able to give order only to 1. What about the other 4? So Mr. Parrikar then said that we will refund the cost of development to the successful Make 2 vendors. I am not very happy to share with you that in 2018, there was a small little amendment which came in the MOD website. I think it was July 2018, which said para 98, 97 and 98 is hereby null and void or cancelled. And that para 97, 98 talked about the refund of the cost of development. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us remember the money belongs to us. It's the Consolidated Fund of India. Industry's money is also our money. MOD's money is also our money. It's the taxpayers' money that's going in over there. And therefore, I see a difference between Make 1, Make 2. In Make 1, we say we will take only 2 people because we don't want to fund more because MOD's money is going out. Whereas in Make 2, 10, 20, 15, any number can come. Because after all, it's somebody else's money. It's not somebody else's money, it's our money. So for every success, it's not a good idea to create 8 or 9 failures. Then what will happen in period of time, we'll have more failures than success. It's a different story that people justify this by saying, they'll gain experience. At whose cost? At what cost? Will they come back to you again? I think these are the questions that were there. I thought I'll talk to you about. But the man at the center stage of all this, a graduate mechanical engineer, commissioned in the aeronautical engineering branch in 1992, trained in the maintenance of Jaguar aircrafts, trained on explosive ordnance disposal. He is trained on weapons safety with the US Air Force. He did his post-graduation in higher defense management from the CDM. He's been associated with a number of service appointments, service engineer at the fighter squad and commanded the vintage aircraft of the Indian Air Force, premier to air to ground of the IAF. He served as the chief engineering officer of a Jaguar operating base and various appointments at command and air headquarters. Since 2018, in his present appointment as the Director Acquisition Technical and the Make PMU of Indian Air Force, The officer has been involved in various capital schemes under the Make in India process and is a nodal single point of contact for indigenous industry in make programs. For his service, he's been commended by the Chief of the Air Staff as well as the AOC&C Headquarter Central Air Command. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Group Captain Mukesh Sharma to enlighten us on the make programs. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, good late morning. After the fabulous introduction by Colonel Kuber, it's a little overwhelming for me to be standing here with my own AOM, Marshal Pandey, and practically the front row of the auditorium is full of people who have written the book on the subject that I'm going to be speaking on today. But having said that, I'm also glad from the industry participant, all the people with red tag around the neck, number of faces, they don't surprise me. So many of you have already met in various other seminars, various other projects that we have been working with. For about 10 minutes or so, the mandate to me for today's talk was to speak on various Make 1 and Make 2 schemes that the Air Force is pursuing. Before I start with it, number of you have the mobile phones with you, smartphones. We thought we will get contemporary with technology. There's a QR code also on the screen. So this is the standard contact detail. Since the directorate that I work with is the nodal directorate for practically everything connected with make schemes or TDF or IDEX for that matter, it's easy for you to reach up to me. This slide actually wasn't necessary, but just to set the context right, since the context has already been set by the last session. It's a little dated slide. It's about 3 years back that I made this. This is a word cloud of, at that time in Modi 1, all the speeches that the Prime Minister had done. I had taken those speeches and run it through that word cloud software. Which will poll all the numbers and all the words, and the words that are spoken most in a speech tend to show up bigger in number, and they are aligned in that manner. And this is not a fudge data, it's a software output. You can see the direction that the Prime Minister intends us to take. India is in the center of it. We intend to go global with indigenous technology. Various important words are thrown around in the word cloud. Since I'm speaking to an association which represents the interest of the MSMEs, this was a graphic I felt best articulates the MSME sector, which has not yet started engaging with the defense industry. There are a number of paths. At first, it sounds overwhelming, and so many routes to choose. Which route do we take? If I climb one ladder, can I come down and climb another ladder at a later time? As we start engaging, those amongst you, when we start speaking, we are going to use various words that connect with Atmanirbharta, Make in India. Almost all the words, 80% of the words that we will normally speak are on the slide. And if they don't make sense, they don't make sense because while the language that we speak is common, the grammar that we speak is different. We representing the government and you representing the industry. Through this talk of 10 minutes, the important words that go around, I'll try to emphasize them so that both of us are on the same grammatical path. Make in India on top, gentlemen, I'm sure you understand, is a slogan. Atmanirbharta is a slogan. And that's it. Every other word on that slide is a procedure. It's a category. So when we say a procedure and when we talk about it in a government parlance, there is an action to be done. And that word has got a specific meaning when we work with it. And each of you, no matter which procedure you choose to go IDDM, to go a buy route or a buy and make route, or make procedures that we have, or indigenize, AOM did mention in the morning, Chapter 15, DPP 2009, or the TDF or the IDEX routes, which I will cover in my subsequent slides. Each of them is a procedure, and if we have to succeed as a government, we protect certain interests. So you have to understand the concerns that we have in taking that procedure forward, and understandably, the fact that we are here and engaging with you, we will understand your concerns on the subject. And from that one jumbled word slide, by the end of this presentation, I'm hoping we will all be able to understand what is spoken here, sir. These are the two Bibles that the all acquisitions that the government or that the Defense Ministry does. The earlier one was a DPP 16, which dealt with all the capital procedures, and the DPM 2009, which deals with all the revenue procurement procedures. DPP 16 has now been amended to the DAP 2020, issued in October 2020. Buy Indian IDDM is an important word which all of you would continue hearing as we engage case specific or process specific or on procedure specific matters. It's a vital pillar for realizing the whole slogan of Make in India. So needless to say, if we are going to procure anything or we are going to acquire anything, Buy Indian IDDM is going to be our most preferred category. And there are other categories. I will cover them up in the subsequent slide. And this slide has got this category has got two components to it. There is a buy component to that case, and there is an IDDM component to that case. Buy is a separate procedure. IDDM is a separate procedure. And when I say IDDM, it is indigenous designed, developed, and manufactured. And in a case where we engage in an IDDM case, each of them is a deliverable. Indigenous design is a deliverable. Indigenous development is a deliverable. Indigenous manufacture is a deliverable. Some of you would have heard terms like IC percentages, 50%, 40%, 60%. IC is a measure of the indigenous manufacture capability of that case. To give you an indication of the big picture of various schemes that are running around where military in one form or another would be engaged is as shown on the screen. The left block are broadly the schemes we directly engage with. On the right block are the schemes that MOD has got at various stages of maturity. The TDF sponsored by the DRDO and the IDEX sponsored by the Defense Innovation Organization are successful schemes. They are all implemented and they have matured to a certain level already. There's a technological innovation fund which works under the NSCS. There's an advanced technology development board which is being steered by the principal scientific advisor. A new defense production and export promotion policy is at a draft stage. It should be coming out soon. Setting up of defense corridors as a procedure, as a scheme, is a separate implementation. Some of you would be aware of a policy document that has been issued for preference in public procurement to Indian industry and preference in public procurement to MSMEs, which is Ministry of MSME has issued a separate notification on it. Then there's an IPR facilitation cell that the DGQA has set up. And of course, there are provisions related to IGS. There are intergovernmental agreements, some of which have already been signed, a specific agreement on how we manage IPRs with the Russians, a specific agreement with Russians, how we can, since large part of our inventory is originally of Russian origin, the spares that go into it, how can Indian industry engage with Russian OEMs and we can manufacture those items in India. There's a defense technology and trade initiative with the Americans, and at least two more agreements that the government is engaging with, which will take shape and come out soon. These are the 5 main prioritized categories when we work in a capital acquisition scheme, and the most preferred being on top and the least preferred being on bottom. Buy Indian IDDM, I touched about IDDM 2 slides back. If that does not work out, if you're not able to design an item, next category would be Buy Indian. So where we don't design, but at least it's manufactured in India, it creates Indian jobs. If that does not work out, then we will take a case to Buy and Make Indian category, where the contract would be with an Indian vendor who could have a arrangement, a JV, a TOT arrangement with a foreign OEM. Some parts could be first bought in fully formed kit, and then subsequently we could increase the indigenous content in the country. DPP 16 used to have a category called Buy and Make. Global is silent in that. So Buy and Make category contracts were with foreign partners who would then partner with an Indian company, and we would make part of the contract in India. In DAP 2020, Buy and Make has been removed as a category, and some of what Buy and Make did has been subsumed in a Make 3 category, and some of rest of it has been subsumed in a new category called Buy Global, Manufacture in India. The DAP 2020 also has 4 non-prioritized categories. Make and innovations, there's a chapter 3 deals with it. Design and development, when we work through DRDO or DPSUs or erstwhile OFBs, that would be a chapter 4 case. There's a separate chapter on strategic partnership model, and a new chapter on leasing. So these are the non-prioritized categories. These are not the categories under which the procurement would happen. These cases would eventually lead up to one of the categories on the main pyramid. While we are here, since we're speaking to the Indian industry, the definition, when we call an Indian industry an Indian vendor, this is what we understand. This is our grammar. DAP has got very clear definition. For all our acquisition cases, an Indian vendor is going to be someone who is registered under the Companies Act 2013 and various provisions under that Companies Act, some of which are clearly stated, some of which can be interpreted. So all those interpretations that are there in Companies Act are acceptable to us as an Indian vendor, except when we work in make cases. So where there are 2 special stipulations that come into places. So for which cases, that will be make 1, make 2, development cum production partner, which is a case when we are doing development through DRDO or a DPSU, and strategic partnership model. In such cases, the government wants that the control of that company should also remain in Indian hands. So it should be so to say, a pure Indian vendor whom we work with. Okay, so how can MSMEs engage? Since we are talking to the MSMEs, there are 2 methods in which MSMEs can deal directly with the services. One is indirectly, and that is a better preferred method where you can work as tier 1, 2, or 3 vendors to large indicators or DPSUs on the major acquisition programs or make programs, some of which are under articulation. I will discuss in 3 slides from now. And directly by participating in various schemes, some of which are open to the larger industries, some of which are dedicated for MSMEs. And these are the procedures that we will have to follow depending upon the scheme that we follow. Colonel Kuber in his opening marks did cover what Make 1 stands for. Make 1 is where government will fund certain percentage. DPP lays down a limit of 70% subject to a top limit of 250 crores per prototype for development. But for our purposes, let's not bind ourselves to this percentage and that limit. If there's a case that merits, and if there's a DND that a company is able to do, these numbers can be reduced and they can also be increased. Make 2 is a category which was brought into acquisition processes on insistence of the industry. So they said, we don't want money for DND. We will spend money on DND, but at least buy that what we make in the country. So Make 2 is a very facilitative category, and it came into that form. Make 3 is a very new implementation. It got implemented only 2 years back. Make 3 category does not have a IDDM as a deliverable. So items where technically it is not feasible or it does not make a good business sense to invest into DND infrastructure, This is a category which will permit you to have an arrangement with a non-Indian manufacturer or a supplier, and where at least even if we have not designed that item, we manufacture that item in India, and we buy it from an Indian company. TDF has got a limit of up to 10 crores per prototype. IDEX is architectured purely for dealing with startups. Though as we have grown in IDEX, we have now started engaging with MSMEs also in IDEX schemes. And it is IDEX is a methodology to create an ecosystem where startups and our certification agencies, QA agencies, academia, all these people can find a way to talk to each other, and we can create a product that the services would need, and then we can incubate that startup in a manner where he becomes a viable business entity and start manufacture and start supply to the defense forces. Indigenization is a purely revenue category, items that we use. Make 3 in an interpretation of a category can be used for indigenization purposes also. Summary of Make, I have already covered this slide actually. Make 1, 70% Dnd cost funded by the government up to 250 crores. Any of these procedures will have 2 phases. One is the Dnd phase and other is the procurement phase. Make 2 prototype development funded by industry. We do give an assurance of orders before you put money into prototype development. And Make 3, where prototype is funded by the industry, Dnd is not a deliverable. And procurement for Make 1 and 2 would be through Buy Indian IDDM with all the checks and balances, where IDDM is going to be a deliverable. And Make 3 category, IDDM is not a deliverable. It's a Buy Indian category that we process the case under. And this is an important slide because for the first time in a government acquisition system, Make 2 and Make 3 categories, all Dnd cases, or for that matter acquisition cases, are initiated by the service headquarters. We have a need for them, and we identify how much we need and what time we need, to what specifications we need that item. We prepare a case, seek sanctions, and then process that case for engaging with the industry. In Make 1 and Make 2 and Make 3 cases, there's a special dispensation. Even if we have not initiated a case, suo moto, the industry can make a proposal. We examine it, and if we feel there's a need for that item, we can take that case and run with it. We can create a acquisition proposal based on a suo moto proposal by the industry. Just for your understanding, the 12 steps that we have in Make, these are generic slide, takes about 119 weeks. Earlier, this was about 160 odd weeks. The latest amendment that we have had to the whole process got passed about a month back, that reduced the post-sanction order issue time. So the bottom 4 boxes, these times and the names of these boxes have changed. Instead of a user trial or a field evaluation trials, we will not keep subjecting industry to trials again and again. All of them will be combined at one stage and will be called as a single stage composite trials. Timelines have been reduced, contract timelines have been reduced, contract processes have been reduced. So now it is possible to do a Make 2 case in about 119 weeks. Still long. We are not happy. Industry is not happy. Government is not happy. So now we are working on the processes of the first 8 boxes, how to reduce those processes. Broad understanding between the 3 services is already arrived, what we need to do to reduce times on those things. And in the coming month, you will find this timeline being reduced further. This is a slide of your interest. Yes, you can take pictures. So these are the 20 cases for which AIP has already been accorded. The ones in blue, first 15 are the AIP accorded cases. Serial 16 to 20 are cases for which AIP has not been accorded, but these are exploratory. We have still gone ahead and put up details of these cases on the MOD website, and some industry has responded, but in the discussions that we have had, we have not been able to structure it into a Dnd case yet as we engage further. So those of you representing in the same meeting, I had people expressing interest on the lightning detection system. So These are cases we feel are within the capability of Indian industry. The first three are the make one cases. We will pay the money. So, in fact, serial number 3, the communication systems with Indian security protocols will be a dry services case. The way we do business now in communicating person to person, person to platform, one place to another, from air to ground, air to air, air to ship, ground to ship, every method of communication, voice and data, equipment talking to weapon systems, command and control. Uh, Presently, it is a layered architecture because that is the methodology of implementation. The way world is going, it is going to be a software-based architecture. We'll go away from a layered communication architecture. So this is a huge project. So how can MSMEs contribute? There is no one company in the country who can do serial number 1, 2, and 3. They are big cases, will involve DND, and there would be multiple companies who would have part of the expertise that they can bring to table. Make one has got an enabling provision where I don't need to engage with a single vendor. I can engage with an association of persons. So we can get a group of companies together with different fields of expertise, and then engage with a lead industry to undertake the development. System for automatic takeoff and landing and recording system is a simple technology. Common launcher for Su-30 MKI, lightning detection system, wind profiler, an indigenous precision range extension kit, an airborne ruggedized flight instrumentation system. It is our assessment this equipment is going to be less than 100 crores cost of acquisition. And these are the cases which are specifically reserved for MSMEs and startups. Any case that is less than 100 crores, we first talk to MSME, and if they say no, then we go and talk to others. A bomb 1000 kg wearable robotic equipment is at a very preliminary stage, which we feel again could be a less than 100 crore case. And full motion simulators for the Apache and Chinook helicopters. ATMM rockets is the first case. That's a case where we have already finished feasibility. This is going to be a make 3 case. The quantities that we look at don't justify doing DND. So companies could do a JV with a foreign company. We could set up manufacturing in India and go ahead. Similar with 70mm. And then there's a bird detect and deter system. Main rotor blades for Me-17. Pressurized radome for radars for deploying them at high altitude. And SIGINT and comment equipment for a specific usage. And there is one omnibus case, maintenance, repair, and overall of 57 lines of erstwhile Russian equipment, MiG-29, Su-30, Me-17, 1V, V5. And these 57 lines could actually result into 57 different cases. It's an exploratory case. We don't know if industry will be interested. If industry is interested, and any of the mechanism, which mechanism do we follow under make is for us to identify and find it forward. What we need is an interest and a commitment from a company who is willing to take it forward. These are only for academic interest because these are cases in which project sanction order has already been issued. So no new industry can now come. We are already committed to those companies. Screenshot of the slide, makeinindiadefense.com. This is the MOD website. So everything that I've spoken in one or the other tab on this website is available for you to download. List of all our cases is there in the list of make cases. Contact details, my contact details, my directed contact details, individual project directed which is taking on these cases, briefs about those cases, everything you will find on this website. And based on similar interactions that we have done in the past and a summary of the most often asked questions. So after the session, instead of going into questions, 4 or 5 frequently asked questions. We are an MSME. How can we compete with large companies in open competition? The JS MSME spoke elaborately about all that the government is doing for the MSME sector, but that's for the 4 crores MSMEs. And what do we do in defense, the 12,000 MSMEs in defense sectors? There are 3 provisions in DAP, Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. Any case less than 100 crores is reserved for MSME. If there is interest, we go forward. If no, then we go to another one. Same here, there's another provision in Annexure 5. And a requirement of registrations, where other places we are looking for normal industries should be registered for 2 years. MSMEs, 1-year-old MSMEs also can participate. How do I choose a defense project for Make in India? What are the criteria to select a Make project? Okay, first, Make 1 cases, no option. That is, we draft that case and we come out to the industry and you respond to it. So that option is not there. But like I covered, for Make 2 or Make 3, suo motu cases, industry also can propose. You carry out your business evaluation, you do interactions with other industries, you see various RFIs and things that are uploaded on the website. You feel a need and you think the company can do it, happy to talk to you, come to us. The IC percentages for these categories, by Indian is a 60% category, all other are 50% IC categories. ICs have to be met, they will be verified and we will check. So, and the proposal that is there should meet these 5 requirements that we have for a case. We should be looking at technology that is advanced yet possible to be developed indigenously, or we should have the capacity to absorb that manufacturing technology. It should be a clearly distinct area of technology so that the core competency is developed over a wide spectrum. Should have import substitution and ideally export potential. Reasonably large volumes make a good business case, and if we have an existing and a recurring requirement, again makes a good business case. How long does it take for a Make 2 project? I've covered this. It's Make 1 cases can, the first of the Make 1 cases are just coming up. We are at the feasibility stage from all 3 services. Make 2 and Make 3 are 119 weeks. Needless to say that the complex cases could take longer, simpler cases would take lesser. What happens to the IPR that is generated during the project? IPR provisions mostly are same. In TDF, it is a joint ownership. All other categories, the company who has developed the IPR gets to retain the IPR. There are some concerns in the industry. There's an appendix J to the chapter which gives the details of the IPRs. There's something called government margin rights and government IPRs. There's nothing to scare the industry away. These are a force majeure of IPR language. So in case you no longer exist, you are no longer able to deliver, there is a national contingency and we require that item, you are not able to generate that capacity. Those are the conditions where the government exercises its rights and uses its part of the IPR to transfer those design drawings, manufacturing technology to another company to manufacture that item and give it to us. So it is not something of concern to the industry, because a number of times it has come that with this government margin rights, we don't retain the IPR, you retain the IPR. This is one of my favorite. It is my suo motu proposal. Why are other vendors being asked to respond to the AI? Suo motu is not a single vendor procedure. So you may propose, we may accept the need, but after having accepted the need, we will engage if there's another industry partner who is willing to do the same thing for same cost or more optimum cost. I partnered with a renowned technology provider from abroad. Now I have the ability to manufacture this item in India. Why is my suo motu Make 2 proposal not being considered? For it to qualify as a Make 2 or for that matter IDEX case, Dnd is a deliverable. It should be indigenously designed and developed. If you are already into manufacture, there is no more a design and development. Now it becomes a buy case. It's no longer a make case. So, the item we manufacture is a world-class product. Why was our suo motu proposal not accepted? Same question. It is, if it's already under manufacture, it's a buy case. I partner with a foreign OEM. MOD is the only customer. How do I mitigate the business risk? Don't really have an answer. except Make 3 has a provision, but the rider is you can't propose a new item in a Make 3. Make 3 works only if that's an item which till now we were importing, and now you want to do it in India. Yes, Make 3 provisions can be used. Then para 31C chapter, this is a new introduction in DAP, where if you want to do it, and if the services first take the sanction of the competent authority, which in this case is the Defense Acquisition Council, and if they permit, okay, this company with understanding or partnership or joint venture or TOT arrangement with that company will set up manufacturing facilities for this thing in India, that can even be procured single vendor. This is a provision in DAP, has never been exercised. Thank you. If there are any questions, we can take it now. We can take it at the end of sessions at the call of Colonel Kuber. QR code again for those who didn't scan it for the first time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that elaborate elucidation of Make 2. You talked about the book being written, and policies are made, and I do not know. It's all up to the implementation, and I think you are at the implementation, and I think you're doing a very wonderful job at implementation. Books can be written, and policies can be made. Like we did the Make procedure in DPP 2006. I was really impressed with the non-political slide on the directions of the Prime Minister and how we are going to take it forward, Atmanirbharta. I have a small view on this. I thought I'll share it with this audience. The question always comes to my mind is Atmanirbharta considered to be going in isolation? Are we wanting to say, making a statement that we will do everything here and we don't need anybody else? Is that Atmanirbharta? Or is Atmanirbharta a collaborative arrangement with friends? So I don't know what is Atmanirbharta. I don't really, I can't appreciate at my level. People at very higher levels can definitely appreciate that. But I wanted to throw this idea into your head that, Atmanirbharta, to my mind, is a collaborative arrangement. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Vasudevam sarvamiti saha mahatma sudurlava. What he says is, Bahunam janmanam ante, after so many births and rebirths, ek jnanavan aata hai. One person with knowledge comes. And that bhakti in the bhakti chapter when he says that. So do we want to wait for so many janmas to become Atmanirbharta is my question. So I just want to bring that into perspective. Is it a good idea to have a collaborative arrangement with friends? Have your friends. You need not align with any one particular side. But I think we are pursuing a very independent foreign policy today. It's been amply demonstrated by our External Affairs Minister. And he stood his ground, and he stood to the appreciation of the entire world on the foreign policy. And I see a great amount of military diplomacy that's going in. Now, so I really liked your slogan to procedure. And I think that is where we are talking about spirit to the letter. And at the end of the day, we are bound by the letter. We are prisoners to procedures. So I think the DPP itself or the DAP itself should be in two volumes. One is a policy and the other is a procedure. Policy is non-negotiable. Procedure is negotiable. It should be left with the executive authority like yourselves who know what is good for the Air Force. I don't think anybody else can say what is good for the Air Force other than the Air Force themselves. So I don't like this backseat driving and somebody tells you, you should buy this and not that and all that. So I think that is where we need to have this. You talked about the DPM 2009. We have the draft DPM 2021. I do not know when we are going to have the DPM in place. You talked about the TDF. There's a lot of effort going on the TDF. You talked about the definition of Indian industry. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to point out a small little anomaly here. There is the definition of an Indian industry which is in accordance with the company laws of India, which is an act of parliament. And MOD Finance, in the finance manual, has got a very different definition of industry, Indian industry. It's there on the MOD website for all of you to see. And I think a number of people have been making representations. I recall the additional secretary, Mr. Jaju himself, saying, please change it. Maybe a couple of months ago, it's not yet been changed. But yes, the finance manual talks of a very different, and therefore MOD finance can at any time, jump into this fray. So we should understand what is the definition of industry that we want to follow in the DAP, and I believe that should be in conformance with the company laws, the Companies Act of 2013. You talked about Make 3, and I was always intrigued between the definition, the difference between Make 2 and Make 3. Make 3 is the only place where foreign OEMs have a play. And this is the only place in the entire DPP, probably apart from one more, which is by Global or something, where the FDI policy is being honored. The FDI policy of the government of India is being honored only in Make 3 and by Global, manufactured in India. Other than these two, FDI can have their own policy. The DAP has got its own procedure, although DAP is internal to the ministry, and it is supposed to be in sync with the rest of the policies of the government of India. Somewhere I find this sync is missing. I think that's something that we need to talk about. The timeline's very impressive that we have been cutting it down, and I think Make 1, you talked about the funding by the government, and sir, I have a suggestion for us here. When the government funds a program, the government has got a right to mandate the percentage of allocation to the MSMEs. Let the government not shy away from this and resort to a 25% MSMEs, as was mentioned by the Joint Secretary. I think here is where the government should say, I want an inclusive industry. There could be a prime who's picking up this project and Make 1, which is a 4,000, 5,000, 10,000, 70,000 crore project. But I want you to integrate 30% or more. Maybe let's make it 35 or 40%. That is when it will help the MSMEs. So I just wanted to give you some small snapshots. Rolls-Royce has won a lion's share in the 2 billion submarine contract, and Rolls-Royce representative Captain Mahajan was here. He is the guy to interface with. Can we get into the global supply chain and do that? Our shipbuilding industry is doing pretty well. I think we should go there. The Boeing president was in India yesterday, met with the Prime Minister. He talked about plenty more in civil and defense. And therefore, once again, it's for the MSMEs to integrate with companies like Boeing. There's a very beautiful event that's taking place in Brazil. Mr. Jaju is leading a delegation with a lot of industry. I think South-South cooperation is taking it to the new level, and I think that's where we need to integrate as MSMEs. There is an RFI for LRSGM, which was given by the Air Force. This is the long-range satellite communication-enabled surface-to-ground missile. It's going to be a huge project. Again, I would encourage MSMEs to integrate with the OEMs in this regard. When you ask, how can I compete with large players? No, we are not here for competing. We are here for collaborating. We are here for integrating. We are here to build the capability into the primes. Let's understand that. And when you compete, I can tell you, you will be L1 because they have got a lot of overheads. India, we have this, can MSMEs participate as a consortium? This is a question that I want to ask. While in Make 1, you're allowing AOP, can we have MSMEs also having a consortium? Can we have an AOP of MSMEs coming and participating in small projects? We can define who will lead that. In an AOP, it is very clear that if they can lead, I think we should also encourage AOP at the level of MSMEs. So, why should there be a limit of funding, 70% or 250 crores? He talked about it. There's no limit. I think the limit is probably as an indicator, but where the situation permits, I think the Air Force, Army, Navy will pitch in and do the good job to the industry. The Indian Navy has talked about Make 1 program in the medium speed diesel engines, Make 2. So I think it's time for me to call up our next speaker And he is a brother officer in arms. He has been to the US. He's done financial modeling. He's got some innovative ideas on financial modeling, and we have discussed certain things at length. He's from a company that integrates more than about 92 MSMEs into the programs that they are doing. They do a lot of offsets in India, more than about, I think, $1 billion. And Partha Rai Chaudhary, floor is all yours from Lockheed Martin, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. I put a timer, so don't worry. I'll finish off in 10, just in time. Respected Air Marshal Pandey, respected Air Vice Marshals, and all dignitaries here in the conference room. So before this conference, I was in another conference made by Jito, the Jain community. And when I walked in there and I finished up my speech, around 6-7 Jain millionaires walked up to me with 3 positive indigenization lists and asked me, "Batao, kisme paisa lagaun?" I was like, what to say? I was finding a door to run away. So this was the kind of enthusiasm today I think most of the industry has. They want to put money, they just need the way out. I'll tell you a very short 1-minute story of Lockheed on numbers so that you understand what happens when a foreign OEM or an industry comes and put their shop here. So 30 years we are here. We have established 2 joint ventures in Hyderabad. It was Cornfield, and where we transformed them into factories. We are the first joint venture partner of Tata Advanced Defense Systems. So Tata practically started their joint venture journey with us. 1,000 employment we have done. We have trained around 1,500 people. We have a toolkit of $100 billion, generated around somewhere around 700 million in exports till now, and all defense products. The product came out of our JV. The products are the empennages. So we have produced 170 C-130 empennages from India, single source. There is no other source in the world. What happened during COVID time, you can imagine how I was trying to push those empennages to the port and then going ahead. 157 S-92 cabins came out of those factories. Those cabins are 100% make in India. And presently also that JV is running. So this is what happened when we actually come up. We support around 530 Indian suppliers. Out of that, 143 are MSMEs. And 70 Indian suppliers are into our global value chain. Irrespective what happens, they still remains in the Indian supply, whether we get offset, we don't get offset. And that is actually inducing around 10,000 jobs across the country. So that's a short story of Lockheed, very short. I wanted to tell you about what we have done, and just you imagine the effect that we have, the ripple effect that we have when we are doing such a thing. Lot been discussed here, and now challenges to MSME, how can I galvanize, how can we fast track it, that's the question. Okay, give me some more room, that is the answer here. How to get more room? Suppose I want to issue an order to a MSME here. Suppose I just give you an example, I want to give a wire harness order to a company here. Can I do it independently? No. I have to go to MOD, ask for an approval. They will take their own time, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. If there is a problem, a stamp missing, they will return back the paper to me. Hey, the company stamp is missing, the company secretary is not there. That is some problem in the Indian company. Please give it to me. I have to give it back. The whole process takes 1 year, 1.5 years. Will my factory wait for MOD to take that decision of giving me an approval to give an order to them? No, they will not. They will give that order to Mexico, they will give that order to Canada, they will give that order to Poland. Who is missing out here is the Indian industry. And I can say it very clearly, I have lost more than $15 million of orders just for waiting for the approvals. And I feel bad for those companies. So can we find a way out where we can clearly give order to our MSMEs, because these are Indian companies? The MSME, I think the JS just spoke about it. So about records, about keeping data. Can we keep a data of the Indian companies who are already there, have their, so we just place the order and we don't have to go through all this process of stamping, acceptance. There is a procedure called acceptance by the IOB. What do you mean by acceptance? I'm giving them an order, they're accepted, that's why they're taking the money. What are you going to do with that? Even MOD and our rules are going inside the joint venture or the terms and agreement between the two companies. Is it governed by Indian laws? Is it governed? How does it matter? And why should I be governed by Indian laws? It's an agreement between two companies. It should be a third party country, like maybe London. if I'm doing from US and India. So these are the small challenges which I don't want to get into details, but yes, there is flexibility required. We spoke about hub and spoke model. Right now, the MSME secretary spoke about that. She said that, so where is this industry, where is this cluster getting developed? They're getting developed in the state government. Why the industries department of state government cannot have a joint venture or agreement with the MSME ministry and MOD together? We foreign companies, we go and we develop that cluster. You want a wire harness one, you want a machining one, you want some sub equipments to come up. That can only come up when we go there and pitch in. And importantly, their skill development ministries also should be involved. We totally neglect the skill development. Why do we develop? If that person doesn't know how to work on the machine, how will you get that product? It's very strange. We have. I have to give an example here. Indian Air Force is using a LSV, like specialist vehicle, which they bought from Ashok Leyland. 2013. Lockheed Martin gave the whole drawing, the 100% transfer of technology of LSV to Ashok Leyland. And what is surprising is 2019, they develop 100% on Indian manufactured LSV. None of the parts on that vehicle is from abroad. None of the parts what Lockheed told them to buy. All of it, but they took the design and the TOT. Somebody referred that why should we get indigenous, companies should have a foreign OEM, which will start from scratch. IDDM, Make in India. Why to reinvent the wheel? If there is a matchbox available, why do you want to take two stones and start a like a fire? Take that and develop a lighter. I think we should think very, very differently what we have today. I think we have approached the idea, we have approached many times that we want to give a transfer of technology for a particular equipment. And guess what? We said, no, we already have it. We are developing it. Yes, you are going to develop it. We are going to develop it. I'm not going to blandish here for the, I'm an Indian. I want more. I want that more things should happen in India. And so I'm telling you today that we should start thinking about how to take our technology and build up more on it, rather than start reinventing the wheel, which will take another 20 years to come. Sorry to get so many points. Indigenous critical raw materials. We started picking about, can we have raw materials indigenized and can do it? Do you have the quantity? I keep telling you, do you have the quantity? How can a factory sustain it without a critical quantity? I suppose let's talk about aluminium sheet metal. Indigenized for Indian Air Force, everything done. What is your demand? Not even 2,000 metric tons. A factory requires 30,000 metric tons to run. Who is going to take that? So then you come up and look up to me and say, okay, fine, you take the demand, you buy it from me. Okay, I'll buy it from you. How much is my demand? So if I think Godrej will tell, total, if I need, I have to accumulate 10, 20 companies together to make a demand of 30,000 metric tons of critical raw materials. Same for others. Titaniums, most of the countries don't import titaniums because they have their own laws. So that's a challenge. How do we overcome that? So these are the things which, when policy is made and policy is actually is implemented, I think we should take a much more wider view of what we are trying to do and achieve. Coming to industrial security agreement and industry know-how and DTTI, how many programs are there in DTTI? I keep taking example. We offered Javelin long back, and today it's a hot cake selling everywhere. Why didn't we make it? We offered also other things, and not only us. It's not Lockheed. It's all Boeing. It's all Airbus. It's all other OEMs who are trying to offer something. We should grab it, make an Indian partner, and maybe we have something more with them. Coming to offset versus acquisition, we spoke about a $2 billion lion's share, what Colonel Kuber said. But when you are talking about $1 billion of offset, nobody's interested. Nobody's ready to take onus. I'm surprised. I'm surprised when an offset conference happens in Spain, nobody attends it. So we are ready to spend money, but we are not ready to take money. When offset happens, it is our baby. We can take it and put it anywhere we want, any project we want, but we don't want to take it. But when it comes to acquisition, there's a huge CNC, there's a TOAC, there's everywhere, every processes, hundreds of people involved to take a $1 billion sale where we are going a $1 billion to someone. And when we are taking $1 billion for someone, we leave it to a small department in Down W and 4 people just take it wherever you can. And that's somewhere where I feel the pinch that why are we not using offsets properly when we are getting benefited from that? That offset money is going up to our MSME. That offset money is going into various projects which we can actually shape. Lockheed is trying to give a S-76 whole helicopter model, a whole helicopter production platform in India. Now, can we think about other platforms also which through offsets, not only one small sourcing project for an MSME. In this particular DAP, we said, hey, we will not buy components, a 0.5 multiplier. What do you think this MSMEs are doing? They're making components. You're snatching away their bread. So are we thinking about making only big things? If you're making big things, start with small. Let's have the days, first day correct, then we will have all the days correct in the year. So that's what I feel. Sorry to bring out so many points, but I think this government is very, very proactive. I'm speaking all this because I know I don't want to fall it into the deaf ears, so I don't want to see that all my issues and ideas go in vain. And I think this government is very, very proactive. They look after this issues, they addresses the challenges, and I think they will address these challenges very soon. I'm very, very hopeful about that. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come here and speak in front of you.
Thank you, Partha. Can you hold on, please? Can I take the liberty of asking you to hold on,
Yes,
being
sure.
an old friend? So you talked about the 0.5 multiplier in components, but that's not applicable when you pick up an MSME. It straight away jumps to 1.5. That is the first clarification I wanted to give you.
Yeah.
So 0.5 is if you pick up Godrej for components, then you will get 0.5. But if you pick up an MSME, you will get 1.5. That's number one. Second is I really am impressed with your numbers of 530 companies, 143, and then you talked about 70 in the global supply chain. Ladies and gentlemen, we should get into that. I want to take the liberty of telling you that the first offset policy went out of my desk when I was the director of offsets in MOD way back in 2005 and 2006. And since then, one line in the offset policy remains till today. Foreign OEM is free to choose his Indian offset partner. And at that time, the additional secretary, Mr. Anup Mukherjee, and when we discussed with then Defense Minister, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, the entire idea was the government should not interfere in the business of business. And therefore, foreign OEM was given a very free hand to pick up as, I'm surprised when you say that you have to go and take approvals from somebody. And I think if that is true, then we'll have to cut it off. I can speak to Mr. Jaju on this. And if there is an issue over there, we'll get it resolved. I can send a note to the Defense Secretary because we have been continuously talking about this, that the foreign OEM is free to choose. So one question I want to ask the audience, how many of MSMEs are here who want to interface with Lockheed Martin and be in the global supply chain? Okay, supposing one of them approaches you and says, this is what I can do for you. How do you think you're going to? Can any one of you kindly get up and say, this is what you're doing and you want to interface? Any one of you, of all those who raised hands? Yeah, please, sir. Parachutes, okay. So just take a small case of parachute system. I'm sure you don't use parachutes, you don't jump, but then how do you want to interface it?
So what is the procedure for us is when such a company or any company comes up and asks me about, okay, I want to give you this particular product, we see is it within our range of products or not, whatever
Okay.
we manufacture.
Okay.
And if they are in line, so we check their, first and foremost, we do a due diligence of that company, whether this company is
That's fine.
And then
Let's assume they're good.
Then we check our product, first the quality of that. We come and visit them. We have parameters to check whether the company is fit for us or
So
not.
they're cleared.
And once they are clear, then we issue the RFP.
So
and they get a price.
even if it involves your supply chain back in the US, you're going to interface with?
Absolutely. There's so
Right.
many, 70 of them.
Thank you, Partha. Thank you so much for that.
And one more thing I wanted to tell about supply chain funding. So in India, the problem is SCM is not as perfect as we think. Supply chain funding is something is a big problem for MSMEs. Supply chain funding is a very nice process where you can just pay that company the day they delivers the product. They don't have to wait. So 6 months or 8 months waiting time goes off, and that account payable is always traded. So that is something which we can think about, and our economic and the banks should think about our supply chain funding model. It is very much predominantly it's available in the US. We must learn from there also.
Thank you, Partha. That was excellent from Lockheed Martin. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand to Partha. You must all be wondering as to, we are talking about MSMEs and all we have is the big guys over here. And here is Manik with a degree in mechanical engineering, joined Godrej in 1995. In the course of 27 years, he helped set up 4 manufacturing plants. His capacity of as a vice president, he is engineering, he's the associate vice president of Godrej Interior. and he spearheaded the development of new products. He has taken up assignment as business head. He is actively involved in development of export market. So many more to you, Manik. Can you tell me how many MSMEs are in your supply chain right now, to begin with, and then we'll go ahead with your talk.
MSMEs, I think we have around, Whoopi can share, 500. That's my purchase head over there. That's 500 MSMEs.
500 MSMEs.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Partha Rai Chaudhary has to leave us now, and he's got a meeting back in the Tamil Nadu. He is going to Tamil Nadu. I don't know why you're not going to UP. Okay, anyway, so Tamil Nadu is a great place to be in. All the best. It's only hotter and hottest over there. All the best. Thank you. So can we facilitate him? Felicitate, sorry. So can I request Air Marshal Sir to kindly felicitate Partha Rai Chaudhary. So Manik, we are really running short of time with 500 MSMEs. I think let's go ahead with you. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Godrej and Boys, I represent Godrej Aerospace. We turned 125 yesterday. It's a privilege to be here today and presenting to all of you. We are a global company with touching 1.1 billion customers every day. And Godrej Aerospace is a very small company, a very small division of this very large company. We are into 15 business verticals. One of them is Godrej Aerospace, and it comes with our IP, which is the Industrial Product Group. Other than aerospace, we have the process equipment, the precision equipment, and the tooling division within our forum. Now, coming to Godrej Aerospace, we have all the certifications which are required to deal in the aerospace area, starting with various systems which are required, the NATCAP certifications, and all the certifications are running on merit program. That means that we are only tested again after 24 to 18 months. Otherwise, it's normally within 6 to 12 months where the certifications are required. The segments we are into defense, we are into space, and also into aircrafts. Our contribution to the defense program, our bread and butter, the BrahMos missile, we make the airframes, and then we have graduated into making other components like wings, fins, and also the nose caps. We do some composites for the missile programs. With our consortium partner, MTAR, we are making actuators for our Indian Tejas LCA. And of course, we are into solid motor casings for various missile programs, and we also do the ablative lining, which is a rubber lining for this motor casings. Pods structures is something what we have done for Israeli company, but nothing for directly for the Indian Air Force. Space, we are proud to be associated with ISRO for a long time. The Vikas Engine, the mainstay of our PSLV, GSLV is manufactured at Godrej Vikhroli, again, along with our consortium partner. I'm specifically saying consortium because without consortium, it was not possible about 25 years ago. So Vikas Engine is something which we are very proud of. And then, of course, we have added the cryogenic and now the semi-cryo, which is coming up very soon. The satellite thrusters are also something which we are very proud of in machining and manufacturing at Godrej Vikhroli. On the aircraft side, we are in something which we can contribute to Indian Air Force today. We are into various components and also into tubings. This is largely for the commercial aircrafts, and this again we can contribute to the Indian Air Force in terms of MROs if required. Composites, we have set up a facility about 3 years back. It's a small facility and growing. And similarly, there is a rubber and composite division which we can work with various MSMEs and work on this. What it means, now coming to the subject of the day, what it means to be Atmanirbhar, I think it has been covered a lot. It means that it's necessity today for the government and for the people of India to work on it. It means that we should own not only the manufacturing part, but we should own the IP, we should own the design, and we have to think differently to finally put a label of Make in India on the product. And that is where I think we should be very proud of. So this is what, to me and to Godrej, what Atmanirbhar means, and it has been going on for, I think, 125 years. When the first product of Godrej was made because of the Atmanirbhar, that is the locks. How do we achieve, so the inputs to the industry, I think it has been spoken a lot about. Group captain spoke in detail about Make 1, Make 2, Make 3. Then we have got the DRDO and the TDFs with which we have picked up a couple of projects, again with a partner, the design partner whom we have in Pune, Zeus Numerics. And then there is the fast tracking of projects, the export opportunities, and a long-term perspective which has been brought into the industry over last few years. So these are the positives which inputs which we have got. Now, the opportunity is there in refurbishment. There are various refurbishment programs which are coming up. So in missile programs, in aircrafts, is something which we need to look into. Retrofitting and putting the new technology onto the old platforms. And then a critical part which I want to touch upon a little more in detail is indigenization of supporting equipment. That means the chemicals. Now, some of the chemicals which we use today in surface treatment, heat treatment are all imported. If a German company or an American company wants to stop us from making this component, they can just stop or ban this export of this particular chemical. So how do we de-risk this is something which we need to all deliberate upon. Also the technology part, the technology, a simple thing like a laser drilling, which is required for the combustor of our engine. If India wants to make an engine and GTR is working on it, how do we make a combustor without having a laser drilling as a facility? India doesn't make laser drilling and it is a banned list. No one is supplying it to us. Simple as a 5-axis controller. Even if our friends in tool industry is making a machine, the final controller is bought from Germany. And without a end-use certificate, we are not able to procure it. So can this Make One programs be extended to our technology partners to develop these kind of controllers, to develop this kind of technology is something, a question which I want to put forward to this forum today. Concerns of the industry, volume, most of the programs which are coming are the sunset programs. So once 100 numbers, 200 numbers, whatever has been listed in the book is over, how do we sustain? That is the main question which industry is asking, and rightly so. R&D efforts versus ROI, again a big question, needs to be answered. Training, qualification, test, so many things involved in aerospace, micron finishes which are involved in aerospace. Does the industry understand the long gestation period required to develop these things and the facilities for testing and clearing all the certifications which are required by SEMILEC, DGQ, etc. is something which we need, I think, a training and a good session with the various people. So my suggestion, specification of spares should be very clear. Once you are rolling out the requirements, specifications, I understand these are some old programs, old spares, but the specifications need to be arrived upon along with the industry or partnering with any of the IITs. And can ADA or DRDO labs help us in clearing the specifications? They may not design, but they can at least help us in clearing the specifications of what is required by the IAF or the Navy or the Army. So my final slide, how can we do it? I mean, we have been working with various consortiums, we are working with various partners, and the only way I think it is possible to go forward is a cluster approach. Worldwide, there are clusters which are working, and the cluster can be formed by universities. We are working with various IITs. I think Indian Air Force is working actively with various IITs. So there are the universities, there are startups. Then they have special processes. Again, everyone cannot invest into a world-class heat treatment or a world-class surface treatment or some special machining. So there could be 1 or 2 people in India who can, give us those processes. Technology partners, and then of course we have the large corporations who need to pitch in, and I think that's what Group Captain also was pointing out, that how can the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier be reformed, just like what automobile industry has done. But this will happen only if we all think that we are doing it for the country and, not be very specific on what is therein for me. So this is how we can make this whole thing sustainable. We can make it cost effective, because those 200, 300 numbers which are required for the MROs will build up into a volume if we, gather a larger kitty. And this can be done only by having a cluster program. So sustainable, cost competitive, ease of qualifications, and lastly, sharing of resources, which is most important to sustain us further. So that's what I need to submit my small case over here. So thank you very much for giving us opportunity. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. You should know that there was a rotary UAV which was developed by HAL, AD, and IIT Kanpur. So collaboration, like you talked, is the key. And Genesis, a company, a MOOC company, was picked up for the Hindustan 228. But I don't see anything of that reflected in this region. People talk of region. I do not know how much of the actual imports are getting reflected on region. So Boeing is already in India, and Boeing president was there. He talked about more to come. And Group Captain Sharma talked to us about the 57 line items which are there as MRO. That's a very, very huge opportunity for somebody to pick up. And 3BRD has also issued an RFP for outsourcing the MRO for Mi-17. Vibram, which is made by a startup called Endure, which is a high coaxial helicopter, high flying coaxial helicopter by a startup. MSMEs are doing that. And talking about raw materials, Indian aerospace industry has been hit by non-availability of raw materials, and PhD chambers have taken a great initiative in suggesting, like was mentioned to you in the morning, that more than about 14,000 crores worth of raw materials, and how do we take it forward? So, ladies and gentlemen, I think now we are talking about helicopter pilot. There was this helicopter pilot who flew about 1,000 hours in the helicopters. He's been trained on Russian platforms. He's been trained on he's worked on the LCA. He's worked on various fighter aircrafts. He's commanded a BRD, and I have great pleasure inviting Air Commodore Pramod Puranik. He promised me that he'll keep it to 5 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Respected Marshal Pandey, all the dignitaries on the dais, and as well as in the audience. It's a very great feeling to be amongst people in uniform, and it leaves you, a lot of emotions is bring back. 6 years past, I still charged up when I see people in uniform, and today is not a different day. But yes, most of the points which I had jotted down have been covered by them. So you be rest assured I will not take more than 5 minutes. But I have a few points now which are a little different, because though still at my heart, though I'm speaking on behalf of industry, in my heart and soul, I am still a Fauci. So my points may be a little different. And I think sometimes you might wonder whether I'm talking on behalf of industry or on behalf of the Air Force. So that's okay. Jokes apart, sometime back in May 2020, when Prime Minister announced this so-called Atmanirbhar Bharat slogan, I really don't know, nobody really understood what it is. But the fact that today everybody is sitting, talking about it, this is not the first forum. I have come across many forums where we discuss this, and we should accept that it has become a moment today. And what was indigenization? Indigenization was also like this. I have seen indigenization in Air Force 20 years back. Now also I am seeing indigenization. Actually, this is the moment which we have to caught on. We have to catch on with. Now, industry should realize that this is a golden opportunity, that so-called indigenization has become a movement called Atmanirbhar Bharat. It is no different than what we called indigenization those days. Only thing is the scope has increased. The focus is very good now. Those days we used to think of only the non-critical items. Now I can think of critical item. Now I can think of system. I have gone beyond the subsystem level. I have gone beyond the component level. I am talking to industry. Can you design this system for me? Can you do the complete work for this system for me? Rather than asking, can you make one component of this system? So I think that is where we have come a long way. And as being a man in uniform, I have seen this at the 3BRD was one of those depot where is to a maximum number of indigenization. And I know the entire story, how it goes. But yes, now I just want to outline few things. Like if I do an environment scan, what industry needs? Industry needs opportunities. So there's no doubt that there's an opportunity. Atmanirbhar Bharat, so many people in uniform sitting here, so many policymakers sitting here. Opportunity is right here. How you grab the opportunities, that today thermobaric weapon is being used in the Russian, this conflict. And did you know that the originator of thermobaric weapon was an Indian scientist? So since then, it has been there in us. We had these capabilities within us, but we probably do not know how to integrate it. We probably did not know how to structure these, capabilities, the so-called infrastructure we have, everything which we have in India. Today is an opportunity because the policymakers are giving us that opportunity. Everything is falling in place. So it's not going to be a transformation overnight. It's going to take some time. So I can only tell the industry that we need to have a lot of resilience. There are going to be failures. You need to be brave enough to accept those failures. You need to go beyond, thinking for very short term, think of a long term. I think that is very important for the industry. There are industries which have their own capabilities. We have an industry which is a fragmented industry as on date, and what we need to do, probably work towards, is how we synergize the capabilities of our industry. How do we come together and have a leadership within the industry? We have centers of excellence within industry. Now, if to talk about my company, Bharat Forge, a Kalyani Group company, we are one of the best forging company in the world. I know that tomorrow, if we want to make engines in India, my company can contribute 40% by cost for that engine, because 40% of the cost of the engines lies in the metal forging casting components, which we are capable of doing. When we are the one of the best company, forging company in the world, I can contribute straight away 40% to making an engine in aero in India. That is why the focus of my company is probably towards making how we get aero engines in India. Some of the opportunities which I have listed down for the aerospace industry is, say, aero engines in India, aerospace material in India, which we do not have. Again, I can tell you with pride that Bharat Forge has this capability of making. We are one of the biggest steel manufacturer in India today. So we have this capability of making but we need that opportunity, that market. Somebody spoke about, how much we need to have that risk mitigation. When it comes to industry, we need to know that, yes, there is a stream of revenue which is come for next 20 years or 15 years when I want to invest a lot of money into it. So I think things are moving in the right direction. This is the right opportunity for all of us to come together and work towards the dream called Atmanirbhar Bharat. Other challenges for the industry is probably going to be how you develop the skill sets. It's easier said than done that if you take a transfer of technology, it is very easy to absorb the technology. I don't think we are at that level of maturity today where we can transfer the technology, get the transfer of technology very easily. Finally, when it comes to aerospace, what matters most is the quality, reliability, and trustworthiness. And that is where I think we all need to work toward. That is why I said we as an industry need to have a lot of resilience. Okay, I think most of the points the other people had, I had with already been covered. I feel the new model, this SPV model, which we are talking about now, that which we are looking at, something like IMRH and that DVMRH.
AMCA.
Yes. So AMCA, this is what is going to, we had lost out some opportunities like NUH in the strategic partnership model. I think this is the indigenized strategic partnership model, if I am not wrong. Colonel Kuber will be able to correct me. This particular SPV model, I think, will fetch us a lot of things to give good opportunities for the industries in India, and we are looking forward to participating in such thing. At the same time, I must felicitate, I must compliment all the people in uniform who have been so open to all of us. There 20 years back, you would never like to come across and talk to a vendor. Today, they treat you as a partner. It's a huge, huge change, let me tell you. It's the best time for all of us to work for defense services. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for that excellent talk. You talked about aero engines, you talked about materials. I'll add critical technologies. And as Ernst & Young, we created the DPR for the government to populate the two corridors. And three schemes in special we have just drafted. It is with the PMO. It will. It's going to come out in the next about a couple of months on aerospace materials, on aero engines, and critical technologies, and one more. So all this, we are looking at funding of about close to 10,000 crores. It will include a PLI plus a grant. So I think it's going to happen. And you talked about SPV. I should say that SPV is a very, very mature stage. We had a very detailed discussion with Dr. Satish Reddy on this. We structured that, and again, we had that. So I think we are going to look at something very important. So, ladies and gentlemen, all that is left over for me is to tell you that Group Captain Mukesh Sharma and his directorate, anytime that, this is the feedback that I've received from the industry, that they are so very open that you can go talk to them, give your ideas, get knowledge from them as to what are the specs. For specs, you don't have to go to DRDO or somebody else. The specs will be told to you here, because there is a EPC, there is a committee which is headed by the deputy chief, and I think they've got all the knowledge with them. They're going to tell you everything. And also the Indigenization Directorate, I must talk about AVM Sareen and his predecessor Ramakrishnan. I mean, people have been flocking around them, talking to them, and they were never tired of talking to them. And I think they were among the last of the people to leave a particular seminar. And I used to tell him, why don't we go? He said, no, I've got to address so many industries. And that is the spirit of the Air Force, ladies and gentlemen. And fly high, aim high, touch the sky with glory. All that is left over for me is to invite Air Marshal Pandey sir to felicitate the panel. Thank you, sir.
A big round of applause for Representative Plan Director Acquisition, Group Captain Mukesh Sharma ji. Mr. Manik Behram Kamdeen from Godrej Aerospace. Mr. Pramod Puranik, the Vice President of the Defense, Bharat Forge Defense and Aerospace. And last but not the least, Colonel K.V. Kuber, the Director Aerospace and Defense from Ernst & Young. Colonel Kuber, you will have to stay back for the next session also. So please kindly be seated, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I'm the only one to get a second memento, so I'm staying back. So may I have the pleasure of inviting three big stalwarts, and these are the people you've got to listen to, though we are running about 40 minutes late, doesn't matter. But then, if you don't listen to the quality portion of life, then life has no quality. So here is what I was talking to Mr. Sanjay Chawla a little while ago, and he said, we have transformed ourselves. Atma transformation. So Atma Nirbharta ke liye Atma transformation. So he says we've transformed ourselves. We have sort of enabled the industry to do their own testing. They do with a lot of people. That's, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sanjay Chawla, the DGAQA. May I have the pleasure of requesting Dr. Peter Arun, Scientist F from RCMA, Center for Military Airworthiness and Certification, CEMILAC. Please, sir. And may I have the privilege to invite Air Commodore Sandeep Kumar, the man at the center of all this, and whom you have seen a little while ago, the Air Commodore Indigenization in the Indian Air Force. So, ladies and gentlemen, CEMILAC is a very, very difficult animal to deal with. And that's what, sir, the industry says. I'm not saying this. But then, when I used to interact with Dr. Tamilmani, when he was, a director of CEMILAC, he used to come and say it's easy. So when we go, that easy somehow transforms to difficult. So there is a process in CEMILAC. Input is easy, output is difficult. But then, what Dr. Arun is going to tell us today is how they have actually facilitated too much of felicitation and facilitation today, how they have actually facilitated industry in coming forward, and how the certification of CEMILAC has taken a very new turn. And there was a thought process, sir. I think I want you to address this thought process, whether it is true and whether we want to actually push it. That if we in India are accepting a Rafale under their certification, should not the Europe and Americas accept a CEMILAC certification as a global certification? Sir, all yours.
Very good afternoon to one and all present here. We have seen opportunities, we have seen numbers. Now it's time to look at the technicalities that go into making a product airworthy. So I will be sticking to my time, to the chair of the session. And we look at the principle of airworthiness and certification. It is a foundation on which every development is of any airborne system for an air platform is made. We take a case study to look into the certification methodology and see, give you a flavor of the rigor of certification that goes into making a product airworthy, and then the coverage that is given for the product in service, which is the continued airworthiness coverage, wherein indigenous substitution and indigenization is one of the aspects of it. We look at some of the concepts of the new DDP mass that was released in the year 2021, and the LTCC, Local Type Certification Committee, through which indigenization is undertaken, and some new concepts that have been introduced. So when you say airworthiness, what does it actually mean? It is the capability of the aircraft to perform satisfactorily and fulfill its mission requirements throughout the specified life in the prevailing environments with acceptable levels of safety. The key words are here: it should perform all through its life in the environments. At the same time, it should be safe. And certification is nothing but the process which ensures, ascertains that the product is indeed airworthy, it's got safety levels, and it can be utilized for its purpose for which it has been made throughout its life. So when you say airworthiness and certification, it should be airworthy all through its entire lifespan. So firstly, it should be airworthy by design. The approved design, which is basically a paper airworthiness, the approved design should be manufactured to the approved SOP, which is the airworthy by manufacture and inspection, which DGAQA is a part of it. And then at every given point of time, the product needs to be ready to take off into the skies to do its intended mission, which means it should be by ensuring right procedures and processes for maintenance and servicing, which is undertaken by the services. Airworthiness encompasses a complete life cycle of the product, right from its conception to its retirement. Up to a point of delivery, it is the concurrent certification, and beyond which it is the continued airworthiness coverage. The basic design philosophy of airworthiness is captured in this slide. Basically, there are three parts to it. A spec, requirements are broken to a spec. The requirements here are the air staff requirements. And from the spec, you try to do the design evaluation, which is basic analysis, testing, simulation, generate data to say that, yes, indeed, we are going the right direction, and do some tests. So this is called the design adequacy and the test adequacy stage, and then imbibe the safety requirements to the standards that we talk of, military standards and every other standard that we know of, and then flight test it through the FCN, flight clearance note or the flight clearance certificate, and then comply to the requirements and safety. And if it's ready to go, it's certified, what we call as IOC, FOC. Essentially, there are three parts: design analysis, testing, which is both ground and flight, and then analysis of the results and the documentation. Documentation is the evidence that ascertains that we are in the right direction, it is safe, it complies to all the safety standards as well as the requirements. Certification are at three levels. We say certification of the airborne stores, which is the LRUs, and this whole August audience is basically looking at that aspect. And then LRUs put together form the system, and there's a system certification, and then finally the air system is certified, which are nothing but putting all the systems together. Typically in a modern aircraft, there are something like 350 LRUs, and about 18 systems put together with 35 software that run these systems, and all put together is the modern aircraft of today. Generally, again, a modern aircraft, there are about 18 systems and subsystems, and you can see the list of the systems that are being there. And each of these systems, when you say design evaluation, it goes through this entire process. You look at the stresses, you look at the strengths, you look at the fatigue, you do some CFD analysis, you do IVNV on the software, you system architecture, you see the reliability, you see the available life in it, FMECA, FMA studies, and hazard analysis. All these are studied, redundancies are seen, failure modes are seen to ensure that, yes, reliability levels are available, the necessary redundancies in the systems are available, and all necessary testing that goes on to it and simulation and analysis meets the requirement. This is what I mean by design evaluation. And once, if you look at it, each of the system are guided by some guidelines of documents. These are military standards. Military standards are guidelines which imbibe safety. And these are these are proposed by IAF in the air staff requirements that it needs to comply to a standard. And if there are no applicable standards available, you could also use other standards that are there, not necessarily the military standards, but since they are just guidelines, they are dovetailed and tailor-made to the Indian operating conditions. Now, that ends the part of the design evaluation, wherein we looked at the design part and the imbibing the safety standards to MIL. Now, each of the systems undergo rigorous testing for its normal modes as well as their failure modes. Necessary test setup and test rigs are created. Specs to the test rigs are approved. Test schedules are approved. Here is where TARB, test adequacy review boards, are conducted. Here is where the test adequacy is looked at it, and the normal and the failure modes are tested to see that yes, this system functions normally and even on the failure modes introduced, and therefore on ground they function well and they're expected to function well in the air as well. This is the test part of it. Once the systems are tested, you put them all together in the aircraft and you test them holistically on the aircraft, which is the aircraft integration level testing, to ensure that all systems put together, they work harmoniously, taking the power from the aircraft and optimally to give you the necessary performance on ground. And here is where the requests for tests of each systems are carried out to ensure that basic issues like EMI, EMC, power, loading, engine ground runs, all systems functioning, the electrical, the hydraulic, the ECS are all ensured here. And now the aircraft is ready to go. It is next phase is the flight testing. In flight testing, we do basically it's done to validate the design. You look at the system performances, you fine-tune the design based on flight testing, you refine the design, and then there are a normal flight testing done, there are specific flight testing done, there are also flight testing done to brave the elements like the hot weather, cold weather, high altitude, because the aircraft is going to be in these environment, and then they need, and your LRUs that you develop need to function there as well. Clearance for flight testing is given issued to the flight clearance note. The summary of that is basically that the design evaluation and testing ensures that it is cleared for that SOP for which it has been designed for, within the limitations that has been designed for, which has evolved out of the evaluation, and for the envelopes. These are legally and a technically binding document for the flight test agency to undertake the flight testing. And during flight testing, you look at the flight data of the previous sorties, you ensure that they are fine, they're satisfactory. You see the work done on the aircraft, that it meets the flight conditions that is required. And finally, the flight test schedule to look if they are in conformance with the cleared envelopes and the cleared test points of the flight, and you undertake the progressive flight testing. So what do you look for in flight testing? There are various aspects. The aircraft is instrumented. You study the system performance, you study the aircraft performance, air data calibration, you look at the robustness of the design, the stability handling characteristics, the loads which are generated. You want to see if they are as predicted, and therefore you know that the testing done, you have sufficient margins in your stress and strengths. And the envelope coverage, engine performances, and any other special test performances, parametric estimations. These are all the aspects that are studied into in the flight testing. And again, when you talk of progressive flight testing, it's a design development. So you start with one set of SOP. As you go along, you evolve the design. You see that the design is done, the ground testing is done for it, and necessary safety of flight tests are also carried out, satisfactory snag rectification, closure of defects, if any special parameters to be looked at, or are all studied, and all prerequisites of the previous test to be completed before going in for the next stage. And we call this as a staircase approach, or a progressive flight clearance, wherein the next FCN is issued. Now coming to the LRUs. LRUs, there are two kinds. One that you develop, indigenous, and the other is the bought-out LRUs. So they start with a spec, you prototype it, you design, develop. There is a qualification tests, results, and there are three layers of qualification that we look into. SOFT, which is a limited qualification, safety of flight test, ensures that while the other qualification can still continue, with the safety of flight test, you can still get a clearance to fly, to generate more and more data from the flight. Should there be any kind of surprises, you can get it back, get the feedback and tune into the design. So you have a limited qualification and a fuel qualification. Bought out item, we study whatever the documentation the OEM is providing. We study the documentation and see whether it caters to the Indian environment, and if anything extra required, a delta qualification is also carried out. We look at analogy, we look at similarity. So the entire list for certification of airborne stores is put out here. You need a technical specification to meet the platform requirements, which needs to be approved. Then the design documents that go into making the design, the component build standards, the drawings, the development processes, the QTR, the qualification test reports based on the qualification test schedule that is approved by SEMILAC, then the certificate of design, and all the other bases of approvals that goes on to the making of the LRUs. Finally, a provisional clearance to the LRU is given. You flight test the LRU, get the feedback, and then look at the compliance to all the design requirements as well as the test requirements and safety requirements. Finally, you put up for type approval. Yes. Now, once the LRU is cleared, now you look at the system certification. There is, you look at the LRU certification, you look at the MIL standards to be complied, ASR to be complied, the performance of the general flight testing, closure of any defect investigations, its recommendation into the design, FME, CA, hazard, and the performance under various environmental condition, and if there is any limitation that comes out of it. And once it meets all the requirements, specifications, and safety, the system is cleared. And once the system is cleared, the aircraft is cleared, and aircraft is ready to be released to the service. So basically, it is done through the release to service document. This again is the final version of the FCN, which says this is the SOP, these are the do's and don'ts, these are the compliances to the MIL and ASR, this is the envelopes for which it is cleared for, and this is the document that is released to the service and the squadron. Now, this whole discussion that I've said talks of the first part of the whole span, which is nothing but the concurrent certification approach, up to the point that we deliver the aircraft to the services. But once the aircraft is in service, it also has other requirements happening, like upgrades and modifications, life extensions, TBO, TTLE extensions, accident investigation, and indigenous substitution is one of the aspects of continued airworthiness coverage. So let me dwell upon that aspect of indigenous substitution. Indigenous substitution, what is it and who is it? Air Marshal AOM clearly brought out what is it. It is a substitution to a foreign LRU. And who can do it? Anybody can do it literally. Government agency, private sector, public sector, and BRDs, naval yards, and army base equivalents are all called the indigenization agencies. Anybody can do indigenous substitution. And I would like to just introduce the DDPMAS 2021 that is released with a combined effort by CEMILAC as well as DGAQA, wherein we brought it in a three-tier approach. One is the policy document, then others a regulation, and then the manuals. So the policy basically talks of the empowerment and the roles and responsibilities of various stakeholders, and the detailed requirements in terms of meeting the requirements, the regulations are brought in the second layer, which is the IMTAR 21. And then manuals are like manuals, they help you to understand what is to be done. And there are task directives, there are forms, etc., which will make you understand this it better, and you start working on the regulations and meeting the policy of any air system. So this particular document, there are specific chapters for the ab initio development of airborne stores as well as indigenous substitution. And the IMTR brings out them in detail. It's available on subparts. You have a subpart C and a subpart K, which talks of what. And you have the website there. It is freely, easily downloadable. I welcome you all to download this document, have a go at it. And we are also open to suggestions. If it merits a bigger cause, definitely it will find a place in the next version to come in this DDPMAS document. And in this, for indigenous substitution, is taken up through a local type certification committee. It is headed by CEMILAC, and there are members from all the stakeholders who look into this indigenization aspect. And what does this committee basically do? It classifies them as critical and non-critical. Critical is something wherein, any malfunctioning of the system can result in safety, reliability, maintainability, interchangeability, and operational effectiveness. And therefore, we say it's critical. And anything it doesn't is non-critical. So I just give a broad guideline. The approach is, once you have a spec and a design and the drawing and the material with you, for a non-critical, it is a very simple approach. LTCC is all aimed to fast track the whole thing. You put up your plan for your development as well as testing, get the guidance and the direction through the LTCC committee members through the meetings, and then go ahead individually with the help of your internal QA or reps delegated by DGAQA. You present the results to LTCC and get the clearance for the non-critical items right away. It may need an aircraft integration. It may not need an aircraft flight testing. And LTCC minutes is the authority for you to bulk produce and procure and give it to the user services. Whereas the critical goes through a little more rigorous phase. There is a qualification test schedule and requirements that are made. And then there is a ground integration. It may go through a flight testing if required. And then the performance of the flight trials are looked into it, and provisional clearance is given, and finally taken through type approval route. A broader perspective is this, that you start with the system specifications, materials, and anybody can take it up, tech spec and the design document. It is done through the approval of the firms. So this is something, it was initially started and temporarily put because the users and DPSUs had their own vendor selection criteria, which was robust enough. But then now that we are going, the DDPMAS has been brought out, and we are going in line with the international line of thinking, international approach. And here is where this design organization approval schemes are coming into the whole thing. And the enablers are already there in the DDPMAS, and it is getting evolved, and the nitty-gritties and the guidelines, etc., are coming up in the next version, wherein DGAQ is also a part of it, wherein they'll be issuing the production approvals as well as the maintenance approval schemes. And of course, you go through testing has to be done in the recognized test houses, NABL accredited laboratories, and then provisional clearances. Then there's inspection taken up by DGAQ, and you put up for type approval. So there are some new concepts that we want to bring in DDPMAS. This is the IMA TSO scheme. What this basically is that if you have a core competency, this is in line with the standard technical orders that is in line with the FAA for civil and the European Union, wherein if you have a core competency, you can design and develop that particular product. And you can get even though you may not have a MOD expression of interest, you can still get a Semilac certification and coverage, have the product ready, and it is to a spec that guarantees a minimum performance. But this doesn't authorize you to install it on the aircraft. Whoever is procuring this product, the users, it can be exported even outside. It is up to them to ensure that it meets the platform requirement. And then if any delta to be done, it is done, and then it can be utilized. So this is a new concept in line. Enablers are there in DDP Mass, and the technical standard order is in the process of evolution. We'll be evolving it with the help of services and the bigger giants like ADA and HAL and everybody, DRDO, and we'll be putting up this technical standard order in place. Then there's another scheme called the Letter of Technical Approval. This certain LRUs that don't come under the type approval or the IMA TSO scheme can be cleared through the Letter of Technical Approval because they find a place in the aircraft. There are certain materials, electronic modules, and finished parts which not necessarily, they form critical spares and they not necessarily come under the rigor of type approval. And this is to basically fast track your clearances, and this comes with a higher validity period. And this can be given by the field RCMA and not necessarily need to go to Semilac. And secondly, standard parts. Standard parts, anybody can make standard parts as long as it is made to an internationally approved technical specification and test schedules wherein all the necessary wherewithal is in place. You are able to make the, as per the documentation, there is no separate processes that you need to put into it. It is not a proprietary item. And once it is made, you don't need a certification. It just amounts to inspection. So again, within the internal quality assurance system or the reps delegated by DGAQA, you inspect it, procure it, and can start utilizing this. This is another concept that has been introduced in the present DDPMAS. So with this, I come to the last conclusion. I just like to say that when it comes to military aviation, safety is the key word, and therefore there is nothing. There's no two ways about it. And to that extent, there is going to be rigor. There is going to be design adequacy and test adequacy. And this is perhaps what the chairman meant, that it is very difficult when it comes to Semilac, but it is difficult. But then we cannot take chances when it comes to safety. But yes, there are ways and means to circumvent certain difficulties, and we have been doing it. We can help you in that. And definitely, we are in line with what the government is talking of, the Make in India policy. And Semilac, along with DGAQA, have kept this as the fundamental guiding blocks when we started making the DDP Mass. And there are a lot of enablers in place that helps you to fast track your products. We are open, we support, we encourage indigenization, we encourage indigenous substitution. We also, in line with AOM's thought process of making a complete gamut of indigenous activity, including repairs and refurbishment. And with this, yes, we are open. Our details are available in the website, including the direct rates with the name, with the telephone, fax, and the email ID. Please feel free to call us up on if you have any clarifications and doubts as to how to go about. We are there to handhold all of you. And with this, let me thank PhD CCI for this opportunity for conducting this wonderful conference, and also IAF for giving us an opportunity to share our views on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, when an aircraft takes off somewhere in Madhya Pradesh, flows towards the north, refuels midair, goes and strikes another country and comes back, well, you need such stringent and laborious certification methods. So, sir, I have three questions. I think you partially answered the first. I don't want you to answer now. Just keep it if you have time in the end. First is it a pass-fail mechanism, or you're going to actually enable? You said you'll support. You said you are here. Do you give some sort of encouragement to the industry? Can you do like this, and therefore you'll be able to do this? Can you change the process a little bit, or it is just going to be with the danda? No, this is out, and that is it. That is one. The second question was. When I come to you with a product and say, can I get it certified? Where do I stand in the queue? And supposing I reach the window, how long does it take for me to actually get it certified? And the third question I have mutually between ASR and this thing is, do we insert some specifications in our RFPs for which are slightly impractical, and do we do something, where you have to actually go abroad to get it tested and show some certification from outside? Because many people say that, you have to go abroad to get certain things. Do we have all the certifications in the country? I think you've answered it by saying we have. And fourth question I had was, what is the linkage between Semilac, DGAQA, and the Directorate of Standardization, which we have in the DPP, in the DDP? So we'll talk about it when we go forward. But ladies and gentlemen, that's important. But sir, I want to make one request. Please give me this presentation. I want to keep it with me. And when somebody says he wants to get into aircraft industry, first I'm going to show this presentation to him. So, and if he still says he wants to go, then of course he is, he's there. He is there for good. So I think, please. Yes.
We accept Rafale certification. Why wouldn't European Union accept our certification? Right. I just wanted to accept, probably, if I could just, I had that point there. So this, anyway, I had that point on the last slide. This is the mutual recognition. So what is mutual recognition is, if the certification agency outside recognizes my certification methodology and I recognize his certification methodology, then we both become mutually recognized, which means whatever I certify, he honors it, and whatever he certifies, I honor it. There is a bilateral, there is a multilateral, many certification agencies together. There can be unilateral. I certify you, but you don't certify me, which means you are bound to accept my certification. So this mutual recognition is one chapter which has been introduced in DDP March 2021, which talks of like, what happens is, there is a INTA, there is a EASA, I mean, for military, they have FA for civil. So all these gentlemen, they would like to know what is my certification approach. They audit me. They come, they have some questionnaires as per the, there is a particular, even there's a particular guideline for it, MRD, I guess, European Military Standard. So as per that, the questionnaires are made. We fill up those questions. They audit us, and once they're satisfied with that, then what happens is, how do you benefit? If you have made a product and you got a certification coverage from Semilac and DGAQA, and when you are exporting, first he looks at, do you have your local certification? Yes, you one tick mark is done. Secondly, your approved house, yes, another tick mark is done. Third, what happens is, if he recognizes me, then you don't have to go again to him and recertify the whole thing back to him, incurring extra cost and time. He automatically accepts that certification. So yes, it is coming up.
Very encouraging, sir. Thank you so much. That's been very, very encouraging that we are doing it, and we can dictate. I think you should take Semilac diplomacy also in this manner. Well, ladies and gentlemen, 36 years of experience is not a small number, and with 30 years in quality assurance of military aviation stores, and covering aerospace materials, composites, guided weapons, transport aircrafts, UAVs, aero engines. I've been told to cut down the introduction, but then people like Mr. Sanjay Chawla, the DGAQA, need no introduction, sir. All yours.
Can it be loaded, please? Very good afternoon, fellow officers from Indian Air Force, MOD, DRDO, DGAQA, and our friends from industry. At the outset, I compliment PSD chambers and Indian Air Force, who are present in such large numbers, for organizing this wonderful conference where all stakeholders, be it the user himself, the regulatory bodies, the industry, all are together deliberating in an open session, and with a wonderful Colonel Kuber as the session chairman, nothing can go out and everything will be clarified then and there. So it's a really wonderful seminar, and I thought, I should personally attend and also meet our friends from industry and see what best can be done further. I'll cover some of the areas which recently we have taken some initiatives in the QA. Always quality assurance is always taken as, we are always on the fire. I mean, everybody, they are not taking us as if, we are the major hurdle in clearance of the stores. But these, we handle military aviation stores where failure is not an option in our systems. So in that sense, we have to be extra cautious. But nevertheless, both Semilec and DGAQA, which are unique for military aviation. The design certification is not there in army or naval products as of now. It's only in military aviation because of its safety requirements. So that needs to be appreciated since we deal with the products which are the highly critical products. My friend has already covered, Peter, a lot of technical requirements, which I would like to skip as per the time. I'll cover with this a small introduction, our function role, the methodologies which we use, and some of the initiatives for the industry. Of course, we are DTD and we are earlier since 1954. We feel proud Dr. Kalam started his professional career with us. And later on, he went to ISRO, DRDO, and of course, ex-president. We are the regulatory body for quality assurance for military aviation for Indian Air Force, complete, Army Aviation, Naval Aviation, Coast Guard, as also some other work for the BSF. We have spread all over across the country, about 47 establishments. Our interactions, primarily, we are under Ministry of Defense, Department of Defense Production, and we do cover our in different development and production agencies, be it DRDO labs, DPSUs, ordnance factories, oil refineries, and as well as private sector. And most of the other organizations, we interact in a technical and other ways. Indian Air Force, Army Aviation, Naval Aviation, Coast Guard. Our role is final acceptance and inspection authority for the stores before it is supplied to the user. And for that, in design and development phase, we are working more as an advisory role rather than the final clearing authority, where the final clearance or the flight clearance is given by the Semilec. We are also a technical agency for providing support to the MOD, Indian Armed Forces, and the protection agencies in pre and post procurement in accordance with the DAP and DPM, which was covered in the morning session. Some of the functions, we're carrying out technical aviation, FET, CNC, these are we are members in various committees. These are as per the DAP, DPM guidelines. An important area is the DI, incident accident investigation, as well as corrective actions at the various production centers. Life extension, we are also a member, which is headed by the Semilec. These are some of the more functions. We grant approval to the main contractors, the aviation test labs, the QC and the lab personnel, as also some of the skill-oriented personnel like welders or the solders. So these are the skill work, those also we give approval. We do certification during design, development, production, ground equipments. Like for Semilec covers the certification for airborne stores, for our ground stores, the certification as well as quality assurance, both activities are done by DGAQA. Quality audit system, product, or the process at the various production centers. We do participate in joint quality audits, which are carried out by jointly with Air Force as well as the DPSU, both at the production firms as well as the Air Force operating units. HSP functions we do carry out where transfer of technology primarily from DRDO labs to the production setups. So primarily for all aero armament stores, the parachutes, and some of the aeromedical stores, the HSP functions are also being held by us. Some of the functions also include capacity assessment of the firms, which earlier was done by Air Force, Air Headquarters. This has been since shifted to us. Assessment of the third-party inspection bodies. This is a new concept which has been introduced. Product certification under Defense Export Promotion Scheme. We issue AQ directives in different areas for the industry. Recently, we have developed a quality rating maturity assessment for enhanced delegation, primarily for the private industry towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, which we expect, a number of industries will be taking up aviation stores. And in that sense, to provide QA coverage in an optimal way, this is the model which we have developed. Based on that, we can give additional self-certification or enhanced delegation to the industry. We do continue update the QA methodologies in line with the international norms. DDP MAS, my friend covered 21, which was released by Honorable RM during Aero India. We jointly with Semilec worked, and DGAQ and Semilec both are now regarded as TAA, that is with the Semilec. These are functions in a small this. QA philosophy, I'll little bit skip. Yeah, this is the QA methodologies which we follow in different industries. Primarily, we do AFQMS system, which is our internal developed quality management system based on international guidelines. which primarily is based on AS 9100. Most of the aerospace industries are today AS 9100 qualified. And we have developed this system. And most of the DPSUs or DRDO labs are having our AFQMS approval, wherein the quality control organization of the industry is assessed and given the approval right from the head of the quality to down the line inspector level in various shops. As also some skilled persons like welders are there, quality control personnel in the process control, the lab test personnel, those are additionally given. So with this, the majority of the quality control work is done by the approved inspectors or approved QC personnel of the DGAQA. And we carry out some limited re-verification of the inspection stages which are critical to quality, so that to ensure that the things are required as per the specifications. In oil refineries, we have the complete green channel or self-certification concept where there is no batch clearance. It is only in audit mode we work. So in that sense, since it's automated and fully process control, there also the inspection personnel as well as the test report personnel are duly approved based on their experience, their qualification. And we do carry out periodical checks, spot checks, process audits, and the annual audits. The next mode is a direct inspection, where some of the MSMEs, like in aeromedical stores or GSC stores, they are developing those stores which are made against specifications which primarily have been DGAQ specifications developed through reverse engineering for the earlier imported stores. There we carry out a direct inspection, and that is the stage inspections in various from raw material to final inspection. Joint inspection we carry out with the Air Force and the other user, wherein PDI and JRI primarily for the imported stores which we are buying from the abroad. This is the QA process and milestones. If you see inspection to quality control, quality assurance to self-control. This is the QA chart which we follow, and based on the level of expertise, level of automation, level of maturity, we go on delegating the level of activity to the QC organization of the firm. This is the same covered in a different chart. These are the Apex governing documents which we follow. Of course, DAP 2020, DPM are the MOD documents. DDP mass, last year it has been issued jointly, and now this has been based on the international norms. It is in line with the MR, which is a European standard, as well as US standard. So now at least our documentation is in line with the international documents, so that we can be tomorrow with our reciprocal arrangements, it will be easier for us to give mutual recognition to each of the countries. These are some of the DGAQ documents. AFQMS is our primary document, which we followed. These all are available on our website. And SOP for capacity assessment, we have recently amended it. Now we have also added some of the vendors which want to import the store, which are the authorized dealer and stockist of the foreign OEMs. That have been recently added, which was a requirement. And a number of AQ directives have been issued in different areas. DGAQ organization manual and some policy documents on utilization of third-party bodies. These are the Apex documents which we follow. And some of the product range, which most of you are well aware, I'll skip on this. These are some of the initiatives which I cover. Capacity assessment and the firms we have recently added, including the MROs as well as the foreign stockists or authorized dealers. Assessment and registration of test labs was earlier carried out by Semilag, which also has been now entrusted to us. And we are carrying out, we have issued a detailed SOP. Number of test labs in the country have been assessed by us, and we are registering them for various activities, which can be utilized by MSME for carrying out the testing on those authorized labs. Third-party inspection agencies, there was a demand like major of the PSUs, when they outsource product to MSME, they have been sending their own QC personnel for carrying out inspection activities, which was very time consuming, as well as some of them, they have to depute the people. It was not cost effective also. So this TPI concept was introduced by us, wherein the independent bodies, they have been given the approval and a methodology for the assessment of these TPI bodies, as also the various QC personnel, their qualification, their educational requirements, their experience, skill tests. These are detailed in these documents. And now HAL has already utilizing these. About 7 of them have already been approved. And these TPI bodies can carry out inspection at the MSME vendor end rather than the HAL inspectors going there. And these can be engaged by and even MSME can select the TPI body out of those which are approved ones. And not only in this TPI concept, one we have added is the approval to the QC organization of the MSME or the subcontractor tier 1, tier 2 can be given by HAL. So there will not be any requirement of PDI. So stores can be directly supplied, inspected by the release note signatory of the firm or the vendor directly to the main contractor. So this provision also has been added in. This is the major thing which has been added recently, and this can be utilized by our MSME friends. DGAK FQMS document we have revised in line with the international norms. DDP mass, my friend covered. This also 21 we issued. Defense testing infrastructure scheme is already in MOD, which in fact was covered in the morning, which MSME can in fact come away where about 75% of subsidies given by government, and wherein some of the testing infrastructure where we find particularly not available in the country or where we need some spare capacity can be generated. So this can be, the industry can come forward with their proposal, and up to 75% grant is available, where we are as a member in the DTIS committee, we are giving our inputs, and number of proposals have come. Further new proposals in material testing and other RFPs are floated. Some of the RFP in, I think, material testing is extended also, and we are awaiting some good response in this scheme. There is a provision for airworthiness coverage for indigenous development certification of aerosource without firm orders. Earlier, both the regulatory bodies, be it SAMILAC or DGAQA, were not getting involved unless there is a firm order from the services or from MOD. So now that also has been dispensed with. Anybody wants to develop some stores ab initio without firm order, they can approach certification bodies for approval. So that by the time, if the firm is approved, by the time there is a requirement, they can save a lot of time and it can be supplied immediately, as also it will help for export promotion. IDEX in the morning it was covered, number of initiatives are there. We are giving our inputs as a member in that committee. A number of new proposals, we are also from the quality assurance point of view examining, giving our suggestions as per the service requirement. Development model for the quality rating of firms, I will touch upon this in the next slide. Sharing of best GQA practices and reciprocal QA arrangements we are doing with other countries. I will come in the next slide. And we have also set up some new field offices so as to cover the whole geographical area of the country. Registration of firms, so far 83 firms we have registered for different areas. They are all available on our website, and about 13 test labs are registered with us. TPI bodies, these are the 6 bodies so far approved, and these can be utilized by MSMEs for the various activities. And there is also provision, as I said, for AFQMS approval to the QC organization of the subcontractor, be it tier 1, tier 2, so as to avoid any PDI. So for that, the guidelines we have already issued, and the main contractor, be it HAL or ordnance factory or a BL, from where the MSME is getting order, they can approach and they can get their own QC organization approved, so that they can be supplied by your own release note signatory as well as test report signatory. Like we have approved HAL or DRDO labs or ordnance factories. In turn, we have made the methodology where they can further approve their subcontractors without asking for any kind of a PDI requirement. As DGAQA being the main QA agency regulatory body, we cover only up to the main contractor, and further we have given full autonomy to the main contractor to handle their up to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 vendors down the line supply chain. So it's full autonomy given to them, though for flight critical or where some failures or some major issues come, we do involve and get audits. But in general, tier phase government quality assurance is not required to go into the tier 1, tier 2 vendors. We only concentrate up to the main contractor. Down the line, full autonomy is given to the main contractor. This is what we have recently initiated. And this is covered in our revised AFQMS document also. DDP mass, Peter has already covered. DTIS scheme, as I said, a number of scheme industry partners may establish testing infrastructure, and government grant in it is available. DGQA Warship is the nodal agency, and we as a team member providing full technical advice and QA coverage for the various airborne stores. I covered this, that without firm orders, now you can develop certain stores. and approached DGAQ as well as Semilac for certification activities as well as QA. Some of the firms have approached us recently. Some of the firms, like particularly like standard items like aircraft cables against mill grade, the firm has developed. One professional from IIT Kanpur, he approached us. In fact, in the first case, there was a failure. He further improved the system. We tested it and gave him a certificate. Now, whenever there is a requirement, either also for indigenous requirement as well as for export, he can use that certificate and get these items supplied. Under this, we are issuing also fit for Indian military use certificate. If during the RFP, if you are, let us say, L2, and you are unable to supply just because of that, and if otherwise you are meeting the requirement, so government have introduced that this certificate can be issued if you have gone through all the trials satisfactory, and with that you will be able to, this will facilitate you, help you for export market. So this scheme also has been, we have introduced, and we are open to wherever those trials, and even where some testing has been done, and it has been the requirements, specification requirements. If the testing has been satisfactory, so test certificate is being issued by us. IDEX is for the innovations. We are part of it, and we are providing the QA coverage. A lot of details are already covered in the morning. This is a new model which we have developed first time, and in fact, this we have developed primarily towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, where we want to give little more enhanced delegation, which are the activities where the full maturity is there. So these are some of the parameters where the quality performance indicators have been developed by us. It has been jointly developed with Indian Air Force, with HAL, and with Engineering Staff College of India in Hyderabad. And this model we have presently trying as a model in 3 HAL divisions to further make it mature. And we would like to introduce in private sector, as you know, in the under Atmanirbhar Bharat, where our requirement of various stage inspections in different areas. So primary idea is some of the initial work areas like manufacturing, sub-assembly, those can be delegated based on the QPI model, wherein the inputs will be generated, the data, based on that, the marking which he gets. And in this, the marks are also given by the contractor himself, by the user, Air Force size, as well as regulatory body. So it's a complete transparency. And in this model, we expect that a lot of industry can use this model, and it can be faster in supplying and maintain the quality requirements which we expect. So these are some of the parameters under this. We have also added the IAQG concept in this. There is an International Aerospace Quality Group. And under that, in fact, last year we advised HAL to be a member in that, and they have the first member from our country in the International Aerospace Quality Group. Now we have a say in IAQG, which lays down the basic guidelines for the aerospace industry in the world. So under this, we are taking all the requirements of IAQG as well as additional QPIs which we have developed. And this model is we are trying, and in fact, we are getting a lot of good inputs under this model. As regards the GQA practices with other foreign international guidelines, we had earlier an Indo-French bilateral agreement wherein with our counterpart in France, they were providing QA coverage and whatever stores were we are importing, so they were inspected by the GQA there. And then in turn from here, of course, there are a lot of quite less of stores which we were exporting to France, and under that 1% of the QA charge was being levied, and that agreement is now, of course, we are trying to renew it. And at the same time, we have now taken up with Indo-US. There is an organization called DCMA. We are very closely working with them. During our PDIs on Boeing for Apache and other aircrafts and P8I, we worked with them and in their number of stages, what they were inspecting for a Apache is about 300 stage inspections they were carrying out from a raw material component level to the full aircraft. As against which for my aircraft, even Su-30, I'm talking 50 stages only from the component to this. So, I mean, what we see is that our level of requirement and this AFQMS document, which we have developed for our system, which we are following, they requested us to share with us. We have recently shared with them with MOD approval, and they have given a lot of, on this. We are further working with them. Basically, we're working that if MSME is a lot of today export is going to US companies, main contractors. And I find that a lot of their inspectors are coming from Singapore in our country to inspect those items which are being exported to the main contractors in the US. So we are looking for a bilateral agreement under which we can provide that QA coverage on behalf of US, and those MSME, those vendors here need not call those foreign QA agencies and carry out the inspection. So towards that we are working with MOD closely, and we hope this can be materialized in due course. And with Indo-Spain also, already we have some kind of arrangement with now C295 project is coming with the Airbus, and that we have already worked with them, the level of QA which will be working. And we also expect that Indo-Spain also, we are likely to have this. This will help our industry also facilitate towards export, as well as we will have a lot of best practices which they follow, and we'll be sharing and helping each other. Last year, we have set up about 5 new facilities, new field centers, primarily at HL divisions at Kasargod, 2 units, one in North Misamari near Pathankot, Mamoon in Northeast, and Bell, Panchkula, of course, and Chennai. With this, we have increased our spread so as to cover, all over the country. It will save more time, and regional offices will be available. These field offices, last 5, another 2 or 3 we are expecting to open in this year. With this, I close, and I welcome your questions and suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. These 2 presentations I cannot interrupt. Then people will say I'm interfering with quality, and therefore we have to listen to them fully. But sir, I picked up one thing from your presentation, and that is, I keep speaking to various universities, some students, and like that, and I'm going to tell them, these aerospace students, that if you want to have a chance to become the President of India, you should start your career with DGAQA. So I think that was a good thing that I picked up today. And in fact, we are inspired by Bharat Ratna, Dr. Abdul Kalam. I mean, we cannot have a better person than that. I'm going to only flag points because we don't have time to discuss. I really wonder why either DGAQA or DGQA should be AHSPs. This is one point that's always been hitting my mind since the time I was in service and in MOD. This AHSP is something we should discuss. A third party is a very great thing that you've done. I think that is good, and more third parties is what is going to the same. Fit for military use. Should a quality organization give the certificate, or should the user give it? This is a question that came to my mind just now. I think if a foreign military would recognize their sister military, I mean, I don't know. This is just came to my mind. I thought I'll talk about it. Not that I was aware of it. Then DTIS scheme, when these people were preparing the DTIS scheme, maybe about 2018-17, I was interacting with the Navy NQA, whatever it was. I told them, please, don't make it 7 companies will come. Don't make it Section 8 company. How can it be a not-for-profit company? Who will come to get it tested? I create a DTIS scheme. The government rolls out 100 crores. The government pays 75 crores. This 25 crores is shared between those 7 companies. 7, just remember, 7 companies. And it is a Section 8 company. And you're expecting Raghu and others to go and get it tested there. I mean, I don't know. So let's wait for the DTIS to really pick up. And I've been talking about it. I told them. But anyway, the RFP is out, and the whites, you don't fight the whites. So I think, sir, that's very, very good, and I really like. But again, the same point I have with you. If somebody comes to DGQA, I don't know where I should stand in the queue. How long is the queue, and how long it takes? I mean, I don't know. So we leave it for this thing. But ladies and gentlemen, I must talk to you something very interesting about the Indian Air Force. I was talking to the SG, and we had a very interactive session between Mr. Sehgal, Colonel Sanyal, and us from EY. We analyzed all the RFPs. In fact, we took pains to analyze the RFPs of Air Force. I want to talk to you about the RFPs from March to April, May till now. 263 tenders are there online from the Air Force. I'm talking only about the Indian Air Force, which is coming from various BRDs, which is coming from the SHQ, which is coming from the Directorate of Indigenization. 263 of them, and we tried to put a number. You say, I can only guess, because if I go and ask somebody, he's not going to tell me what is the value. So I don't even venture asking people these days. So what I do is I put a guess. Something I put at 50 lakhs, something I put at 1 crore, I do some Google. So I take pains. Every RFP I read, every RFP I go to Google, every RFP I try to find some cost. It could be some wire, it could be something. So these 263 RFPs are 870 crores according to my guesstimate. It may be very wrong. And if it is very wrong, it will be 700 crores or it could be 1,500 crores. I don't know. But it is in that number. So I put a number somewhere in between, and I tried to be as justifiable as possible. 14 EOIs, open tenders are 60, RFIs are 2, RFPs 1, limited tenders 21, single tenders 29, MROs 73, radars and spares 25. And this is an exciting field for the industry. In the morning, Group Captain Sharma talked to us about 57 line items. There is RFI out from 3BRD for MRO of MI-17. I mean, I don't know if the government or if the Indian Air Force can do any better than this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the cusp of having lunch, and there is only one person who's going to stand between lunch, and that is Air Commodore Sandeep Kumar, the man who's been in the center. Air Commodore Sandeep Kumar, Vishisht Seva Medal. He worked as an Air Commodore. He's working as the Air Commodore Indigenization at the Air Headquarters. And I think the food that is being prepared is Atmanirbhar food over there. And he is in MTech from IIT Roorkee. He joined the Indian Air Force in 1991, trained as a MI-17, trained in the MI-17 series of helicopters, worked as an engineer officer, senior engineer officer, various MI-17. He's two bases, Satsava and Bagdogra, alumnus of the DSSC Wellington, MTech in Mechanical Engineering, Advanced Air Armament Staff Course from IIT Pune. I think it's called DIAT nowadays. And tenure at FEML DRDO. He's been on the Russian helicopters. He's worked, and also at the Air Headquarters. He was decorated with the Vishisht Seva Medal in 2012 and by the Chief of the Air Staff in 2005 and 2009. No better person who can stand between you and lunch, Air Commodore Sandeep Kumar, Vishisht Seva Medal.
Air Marshal Vikas Pandey, AVSM, VSM, Air Officer in Charge Maintenance, other eminent senior officers from Indian Air Force, Navy, Chairman and President, PhD CCI, distinguished guests, friends from the media, and all the delegates and participants from the industry. I consider this opportunity as my proud privilege to express my views in this distinguished audience. We at Directorate of Indigenization are a very small but a very potent team. We have been working on formulating as much problem statements as possible and then aggressively pursue with the industry. With these problem statements, we are going to throw up a lot of challenges to the industry. And with these challenges lies the opportunities for you. Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, Make in India, Vocal for Local, etc. are not mere buzzwords, but if understood in depth, are very important elements in a visionary revolution which has been launched by our government to achieve Atmanirbharta or self-reliance. We all present here today are vital to this mission, and let's be aligned to this cause. The scope of my presentation would include a brief prelude to the Indigenization in IAF. Thereafter, I'll touch upon the organization structure, various initiatives which act as leverages for the MSMEs, facets of Indigenization process, Thereafter, I'll cover categories of Make in India initiatives. Before moving on to Indigenization in IAF, I'll also cover the role of nodal technology centers which are working at our base repair depots, MRO future requirements of Indian Air Force, quality assurance and certification, which have been adequately covered. I'll just briefly touch upon that. Indigenization initiatives in the recent past. And before I conclude, I'll also touch upon the way ahead. Indigenization gained impetus post breakup of USSR in 1991-92. Indigenization has been a key result area for Indian Air Force for the last few decades. Initial focus on the indigenization of simple and critically required items, which cater for the first to fourth line maintenance. Thereafter, we have moved on to the complex LRUs and subsystems. We are also working on indigenization of critically required items for HL and OEM supported fleets. Our BRDs are playing an excellent role in the indigenization. More than 1,000 vendors are already registered. We have got a very robust registration process. Also, we are regularly uploading the RFP and RFIs and the certification policies on the Indian Air Force website, which is as shown. Indian Air Force is the lead service as far as the indigenization is concerned. The process was initiated in the late 80s, and since then it has gained a lot of momentum. More than 63,000 spares have been indigenized till date. Also, it is followed in two channels, the revenue route, that is through the Directorate of Indigenization and the Maintenance Command, and capital route by the Plans Branch. The organization structure of Indian Air Force is as shown. Air Headquarters is a apex body which functions through the Directorate of Indigenization, Headquarters Maintenance Command, and BRDs and CIMD, which are the executive agencies. Indian government has given a lot of impetus in the recent past to the indigenization initiatives. Make in India is the latest buzzword. The joint ventures with the OEM under the umbrella of MOD are given a lot of importance. A lot of push is also given to Startup India, Skill India, IDEX under the Defense Innovation Organization. Make 1, Make 2 and Make 3 are the three Make projects which have been covered by Group Captain Mukesh. All these have been planned to address the multiple objectives of self-reliance, wider participation of the Indian industry, impetus for MSME sectors, sound implementation and transparent execution, and also timely induction of the equipment into armed forces. Now I'll cover certain initiatives which act as a leverages. Fast track registration for the MSMEs is available. There is also a provision for free tenders, EMD is exempted, and timely payment, which has been covered in the morning session. Also, there is a provision for L1 plus 15%. With this, 25% of the order can be given to the L1, to the L2 also, provided he meets the price of L1. Also, 3% of the annual 25% from the MSMEs owned by the women. The provision of stage-wise payment is also there. These are all covered in the Public Procurement Policy, Order 2017. Now here I'll request all the delegates to focus. These are all the facets of indigenization we are looking forward for. Substitution, development, refurbishment, reclamation, life extension. The indigenization process comprises of identification of the items, generation of technical specifications, followed by the development of prototype, testing, and certification. In a very simplified way, I'll try to explain the process from the commercial point of view. The expression of interest is floated. On receipt of the non-obligatory BQs and response from the firms, the case is moved for acceptance of necessity, followed by floating of RFP, opening of technical bids. On evaluation of the technical bids, we go for opening of commercial bids. And once the negotiations are over, we move the case for ES, which is followed by concluding of the development contract. I'll cover certain Make in India initiatives. They comprise of Make projects, Technology Development Fund, IDEX, and other initiatives. The governing documents are as flashed. The firms willing to register with Indian Air Force for design and development activities are to submit their credentials in form DPM 05, which is available in DPM 2009. Development EOI, expression of interest, and RFP are hosted on CPPP. Make projects key considerations. These have been covered by Group Captain Mukesh in the morning session. A technology that is advanced yet possible to be developed indigenously absorbed. Clearly distinct area of technology so that core competencies developed over a wide spectrum. There has to be an import substitution and export potential in the project. It should also comprise of large volume, and the requirement has to be existing and recurring. I am not dwelling much time on the Make projects. The definition is already covered. Now here is an interesting thing which I would like to highlight, the role of our BRDs. The base repair depots of Indian Air Force are the hub center of MRO. They are the main agencies who undertake Indigenization. The vendor registration, we have got a very robust system in BRDs. More than 1,000 vendors are registered. Our BRDs get very active support from SEMLAC, DGQA, and the R&D labs. Also, regular seminars and industry outreach programs are conducted by BRDs. From Director of Indigenization, last few months, our main objective is that as many as vendors, they interact with the BRDs and come back with a good understanding of the technical specification of the problem statements so that from here on, we can take on. The nodal technological centers are established at all the major BRDs for initiation and management of R&D projects for indigenization, obsolescence mitigation, enhancement of the op capability, and also create and utilize state-of-the-art facilities for undertaking Make in India projects. The nodal technology centers have been set up to create a collegium of BRDs with R&D organization, academia, and industry to undertake innovative projects as part of Make in India initiative. As flashed on the screen are the specialization or the core competencies of these BRDs with the tagged academic institutes and the tagged DRDO/CSR labs. A very vibrant setup for the NTCs. Last 1 year itself, close to 1,000 items or the spares have been indigenized by our NTCs. The functions of the NTCs or the nodal technological centers is to conduct periodical meetings and visits to R&D labs, academia, industry. They also provide funds and review ongoing projects. For the new projects, they are identified and the deliberation on these projects is regularly undertaken. Also, monitoring and controlling of IFTB, Make in India, and Technological Development Fund projects. The future MRO projects which Indian Air Force is looking for is basically the technologies for which we don't have any transfer from the OEM. So this is going to be an exciting phase. We have already formulated or earmarked those technologies which we require. Also, The future MRO projects would comprise of disassembly, cleaning and painting, reclamation, refurbishment, upgradation, repair of avionics LRUs to be specific, development of spares, test equipment, ground equipment, and also outsourcing and part tasking with a specific to Mi-17 series helicopters at 3 BRD, Sukhoi 30 at Nasik, and also there are various part tasking coming up for AN-32 also at 1 BRD. Towards the initiatives, what we have taken, I'll just cover in brief. For import substitution till now, more than 63,000 spares have been indigenized. 5,000 lines have been identified by the BRDs for this year itself as an annual indigenization task and the roll-on task for the current production year. A total of more than 600 spares have been uploaded on the Dnd Defense portal. 30 companies have already shown interest. We would like more and more industry to come forward so that this target can be met. Under IGA, 115 spares were identified for manufacturing in India. Out of these, high-value contract have already been placed for 24 lines SAP PW spares. In our quest for compilation of the problem statements, in the phase 1 itself, we have identified close to 1,000 class A and B spares and 1,826 class C spares, which we have floated to the Indian industry. We are regularly updating the technical specification of these items on Indian Air Force site also, iaf.nic.in, and also in the Dnd Defense portal. In one click, you'll know the complete details of these items along with the photographs and the technical specifications. The tasks for the next few years have already been worked out. What we are planning in phase 2, the items or the requirements will be more than 2,500. These requirements in phase 1 have been grouped into different categories for the faster indigenization. Categories include complex spares, electromechanical, hydraulic, A-data, components, and so on and so forth. We in Indian Air Force believe in absolutely hand-holding for the MSMEs. Some of these comprise drawing generation for vendors, supply of raw materials, material testing facility, environment testing, consultancy for certification and quality, and also for outsourcing, part tasking, apprenticeship, and retired technicians. DGAQ is the approving authority for QA during the design and development for airborne stores. The DD PAMAS 2021 is a governing document, and since for airborne stores, the requirements are very, very stringent, the desired quality has to be obtained. The airworthiness certification of the airborne stores is handled by SEMLAC. The trials are conducted at designated testing agency. Post successful conduct of the trials, SEMLAC gives go-ahead for the series production. Certain initiatives which have been taken by the government and the Indian Air Force, the Indonesian policy review for PSUs and ordnance factories, intergovernmental agreements which I have already covered, revision of DPP and DPM, Defense Innovation Organization, and within Indian Air Force, we are working at further streamlining the procurement of indigenization spares, speeding up indigenization process, focus on non-ARS going on AOGs, and also a number of products have been manufactured using the additive manufacturing, utilizing the facilities or with the support of both academia and industry. The indigenization task over 1,000 lines for the spares have already been worked out, as I covered earlier. We are also in the process of reviewing the existing NTC projects which are undergoing at various BRDs. With this, a lot of other exciting opportunities will be also be thrown up. RFP and RFI data in the IAF website is regularly being updated, as already have covered. The additive manufacturing of low volume critical spares is also being worked out. Introduction of ARS items of HL supported fleets, we are very, very aggressively pursuing and interacting with the HL on regular basis. We have also given, to further streamline, we have given recommendations for amendment to the DPM 209 to ease out various provisions which are existing so that the major constraints are removed or reduced. Creation of central portal for MSMEs, setting up metal testing lab at Air Force Station Kanpur is already completed. In my view, way ahead is development, upgrade of aggregates, development of ROS technology, for which the transfer of technology is not available to us, 3D printing of aircraft parts, the critical or which are loaded parts, and also development of test equipment, roll equipment, and ground equipment. Also, we are aggressively compiling, working it out, the requirements, so that we can provide this to our operational units in order to further operationally enhance the Indian Air Force. We have also worked out for the next 1 year a quarterly plan which comprises of both the technology which will be focusing, which is the theme, and also the industry outreach plan, which is as shown. Based on your core competency and based on the location, you can kindly note it down or take it from us, and you can join at the appropriate opportunity. With this, I would like to conclude by again stating that MSCs has been playing a very major role in the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. In the future, with the requirement what we have worked out, you are going to play a further important role. And with the synergy between Indian Air Force, MOD, and industry, we are not far away from reaching our goal of Atmanirbharta. Only thing what I request is, we have to take ownership, we have to be accountable to this country if we have to reach this visionary goal. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Air Commodore Sandeep. That was a powerful presentation, and you were really standing there. So you must have observed, I had just one question for the audience. You've been such a wonderful audience all throughout the day, and I didn't see people walking out. And I was only observing the audience. I was not listening to you, actually. And I have just one question. And none of them were sleeping too. So my question is, you must have observed that I didn't take any notes during Air Commodore Sandeep's speak. Can somebody tell me why I did not take notes? Yeah? Anybody else? Anybody else? Yeah? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll cut the suspense short. The last word is always of the Indian Air Force. I didn't want to speak. Thank you, Jai Hind. All that is left over for me is to invite Air Commodore Vikas Pandey, sir, once again to. I'm disoriented. I'm disoriented. Sorry, sir. Air Marshal Vikas Pandey, ladies and gentlemen, to felicitate the panel. My apologies, sir.
No, the sugar is running low by now, I think.
Dr. M. Peter Arun from Semilac. Thank you, sir. Mr. Sanjay Chawla, Director General, DG AQA. Thank you so much, sir, for felicitating all the speakers since morning. Thank you, sir. Can we have a group photograph? He's all. Actually, you want again? Yeah. A group photograph. Sir, SG Colonel Saurabh Sarnyal, Mr. Vivek Sehgal, if you can please join. ACSMP, please, sir.
And Dr. Nasir, you
Yeah.
also thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all the audience. And just after a quick lunch, I would like to say that all the audience and all the people who have already registered for B2B meetings, please stay back, and we'll be calling all the companies name by name, and they'll have to go to the B2B meeting in the Modi Hall, which is just at the entrance. B2B meetings, Modi Hall. That's all provision is there. So we'll be calling all the companies by names. So please come back after the quick lunch and be seated in this auditorium itself, please. Yeah, this is the waiting area. We'll be calling the company's name. Thank you so much. Please join for lunch.